baby. Yeah, just roll with it, darling.
Dude, we're
Oh,
live and you're
okay.
singing to the world.
That was my Steve Winwood impression. I didn't say it was a good one.
Yeah, Steve Winwood, he's that Australian musician.
Yeah, right.
I owned I didn't so growing up in the 80s, I didn't own
Hmm.
old school Steve Winwood
Hmm.
because he was a peripheral musician.
Yeah.
You only have so much musical searching to do as you're growing up, so you can't.
Hmm.
But I did end up buying when he reestablished. I guess it was in the late '80s or early '90s. He reestablished his band or something,
Hmm. Yeah, he came in and out. Yeah,
and
several
I
times.
bought his stuff. And I used to jam that
Hmm.
big time because he would play all the instruments basically. So I
Yeah,
learned that from
yeah.
I learned from that moment.
My first exposure to him was on a TV show called The Midnight Special, and he was with the Spencer Davis Group, and they did a cover of "Gimme Some Lovin'." That
Okay.
it was got played heavily on the radio, and oh my god, it's just like, wow, this is cool, this is all right. So I had to go out and find some Spencer Davis Group music. So
He's pretty good.
yeah.
Or um, Steve Winwood. I don't know that
Mhm.
I've heard Spencer Davis.
Well, that was the band, the Spencer Davis Group, is what it was called.
No, I'm right.
So
I haven't. I don't know if I've heard the band necessarily. Maybe I've heard some sort of song of theirs. I don't know. I don't
well,
have.
their big hit, they had a couple, but their biggest was "Give Me Some Lovin'," cover the old Sam and Dave tune.
Okay.
So that's
Anyways,
pretty good.
we welcome everyone here to the show. Good Tuesday.
How's
Reeling in.
Yeah. How's it going in Florida?
Eh,
That good, huh?
it's all right.
We actually have sunshine. We actually have it's we're coming out of perpetual winter. Now, knock on wood, it stays nice. The grass may dry out enough for me to mow tomorrow. Here's hoping. I got to go to dentist in the morning, and then after that, I'll come home and mow. And stop hearing jungle noises at night. I mean, the grass is getting almost knee deep. It's pretty thick, but it's been too wet to do anything with.
Yeah,
So I got to get this cut down. Well,
it's not a favorite of mine. I can tell you that much.
no, no. And the first mow of the season is always going to be the hardest. I'll probably kill the engine about 52 times, and that's just in the backyard. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. It's kind of weird for me. I don't know how to feel. I, you know, growing up as a kid, hanging out with my grandfather and what have you, he always tried to tell me, look, I'm an old man. I can't do this no more. I'm an old man. I can't do this no more. And I could never understand why he would say something like that, and what automatically makes you feel old.
And now you know.
And this is kind of a weird subject, I'm sure, but tomorrow I will get my first social security check.
Okay.
And you don't know how old that makes me feel.
Does
I
it?
don't know what to think about that, man. I mean, yeah, it's great to start getting money back that I started paying into a million years ago. But then again, it's like, damn, boy, you're old enough to get Social Security now.
No, borderline.
Borderline, hell, I am. Oh man, it's just weird. It's strange. We do this, and a lot of what we do here is reminiscing, and it's nostalgia based, and thinking about the way things used to be, and the way things are now, and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But when it hits home like that, it's like, geez, you remember stuff that happened almost 60 years ago. I can't pinpoint any memories of when I was 2 years old, but I've got brief flashes of things right around that time point. It's like, dude, you remember things 60 years ago. Holy hell.
Okay, so I just realized, I don't mean to, I just realized either that's a cut or because I shaved. Either that's, I think it's a cut. I was gonna say I didn't shave here and now I have a little patch here.
No, that looks like a
Mole?
big zit ready to pop.
No,
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 I'm
because
teasing. I'm teasing.
no,
So,
because now it looks like if you do this, it just looks
mhm.
like I have something.
Yeah, it looks like you need to go blow your nose. Yeah. Okay, Al. No, I'm not 67. I'm 62. So I take it now because I ran the numbers, and if I wait until I'm 67, I'll get a little bit more a month, but I would have to live to 95 to break even. You know, so I just take
It's
it now.
there's no better time than to start saving now.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely right. You know, put stuff
Well,
away, do this, that, and the other. It's just that, God, dog, in my brain, I don't feel no 62 years old. My body feels like it's 82 years old, but my head, I'm still that kid who wants to jump on his bike and go pedal around the neighborhood. You know,
but you could,
I could. I'd have to go to storage to get my bike out of storage.
but you don't want to,
No, I don't want to.
right? So
That
you don't
sense of
feel like it.
adventure is gone.
You just like thinking of the idea of doing so.
Oh, I still do a bunch of stuff that I used to do as a kid, but
No,
that's not one of them. Yeah.
but you see how it went full circle. No, I mean, so you are what you are.
Hmm.
You are where you are. You are
Hmm.
who you are. You think how you think. That doesn't mean that you're a fixed number. It's just navigating through the universe. If you want to do something, I'm sure against much odds,
Hmm.
you'll end up doing that thing. Like there's nothing that's going to come between you and, like, just for the sake of argument, a freaking router bit that you
Hmm.
want as an
Hmm.
example.
Yeah.
You know, and if that router bit wasn't a router bit and instead it was a journey to, I don't, Ensenada for the hell of
Hmm.
it because you actually wanted to, that's what you would do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you want to do something bad enough, you won't let anything stop you.
Right.
Even if that means sacrificing now and saving up the money so you can go do it later on. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I firmly believe that. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
So you know, it's just weird that I can now relate to things that I couldn't relate to before.
Just
You know,
today.
well, no, not just today. It just hitting this kind of a milestone, the Social Security thing, just makes me think of just kind of made me think about a lot of stuff. And like I said, the only person I could really relate it to was my grandfather because I never understood why he was the way he was. Well, I understand it now.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
freaking tired.
Yeah, he was tired. He was a carpenter his entire life, and the man worked until he was well into his 70s. He would take jobs and then hire me on as his assistant just so, to give me work. And that wasn't my only source of income or anything, but
I got I've got an idea.
uh,
I know what you need. You're flying over, or you can truck here. I don't care. You're gonna spend a whole weekend in Miami, hitting the with wild abandon, hitting all the clubs, dancing till the break of dawn. Notice how exciting so far this is incrementing. Notice how it's filling your head with, yeah, that sounds like a party. Yeah, roaming the streets to and fro. Oh yeah. What say you?
Sounds like a giant pain in the ass to me.
But you see, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing, you know.
My 21, 22-year-old self would be right there. Yeah, all right. That's okay, cool. I'll be there in
Not
3 days.
guess what? Not me. Back then, I'm a homeboy. When it comes to, I'm a homeboy when it comes to such things. I mean, I was even more adventurous before,
Mm-hmm.
but even
But
that doesn't compare.
but dude, I'm not even talking about adventure. I now see why he wore slip-on shoes. Because bending over to tie your shoes is a pain in the butt. You know? I know most folks are like, "Are you kidding me? It ain't nothing." No, it's not nothing. Do it a few million times. You'll get tired of it. I ain't got time for that. Throw on some slip-ons with a shoehorn with a long handle, of course. Throw on my slip-ons and I'm out the door. You're still tying your left. You know?
So, so I'm gonna transition
Mhm.
to a slight topic here.
Okay.
Um, that kind of connects with what you're saying, age and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching a show, which I do and do not appreciate when watching it. And I'll say, there's a show called Timcast, and it's a bunch of young kids doing political conversations and whatnot. And they're just online and whatnot. They say some of the dumbest things in my analysis,
Mm-hmm.
or their minds, the pieces they put together in order to arrive at a thing. They do have brilliant moments, but that I regard as brilliant. But they miss half
Mm-hmm.
the stop signs down the road because they're just not there.
Yeah.
They haven't gained X amount of wisdom.
It's
As brilliant as they could have certain moments and whatnot, there's insights that I have that I see that they totally miss. And that is the case even if you are of the same age. But
mm-hmm.
point being, in one little back and forth, they were talking about Tucker Carlson being let go,
Mm-hmm.
and how it's become such a thing and this and that. And they were talking about all the different show hosts and the age groups and whatnot. And then they said, yeah, because Tucker said, what is he? He's like 40, right? He says, no, he's like 52. 52. And they spent a whole thing about 52. They spent a whole like segment practically
Yeah.
like rehashing the number 52 to them,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I'm looking at that, I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, what a bunch of freaking just wait and see, punks.
We've become our parents.
No, but just wait
We
and see.
Yeah, we have become our parents because when I was 24, anybody 52 didn't know what the hell he was talking about because I didn't have the experience that person who was 52 had. Oh, well, maybe that was the way it was back then, but we're above that now. Oh, really? No, we're not. You know, it going into the world with this wide-eyed sense of, I won't say wonder, but this, there's a whole world out there and I've got a full life ahead of me and I can be what I want to be and do what I want to do. 30 years later, you realize that 30 years have passed you by. And a lot of people are still waiting to get started.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so you get a bunch of experiences under your belt and you stop thinking that adventurous way and start thinking, wait a minute, is this what it really is?
Yeah, a bunch of bullshit. Oh, a bunch
Yeah,
of
exactly. Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, the older I got, the smarter my dad got.
yeah.
You know,
My
so
father didn't, just like my father. I mean, his anger points were very few, and maybe it's just one thing on the news. But
Mhm.
he was like, don't worry about it, son. This and that. I mean, but then again, you've gone to jungles and slept on jungle floors, and your whole life was upended. You get to a point where it's like, but
Yeah.
with what you're saying, so they have this outlook, and they do have, because remember a couple of things. One, when we were back then, whenever then was,
Mhm.
um, obviously we didn't have the wisdom that we have now. But if I were to be asked if I have wisdom now, I would say, well, compared to 10, 20, 30 years ago, heck yeah. But
Yeah.
to say, um, you know, to think that, okay, well, this is it, right? Like
Mhm.
this is the wisdom. No,
Yeah.
it's not true, because it's a vast chasm of like big question mark of many things. So it's depending on your position of where you stand in the timeline and development, and people are in different locations,
Sure.
at any given time.
Yeah. And a lot of it is, I don't disparage anybody of any age for thinking the way they do, because I think we've all had thoughts along all of those different lines. Um, but as you get experience, things start to change. Your perception starts to change,
Yeah.
and it's not so much deja vu in, wait a minute, I've done this before, or I've been here before. It becomes, oh my God, not again, that kind of thing. It's, I don't know, it's very, very difficult to explain, but I was exactly the same way. I knew everything. You couldn't teach me nothing. But
Yeah.
what I didn't realize is I was learning every second of every day. Something always came along that I'd never faced before.
And that was a learning and the
Eh,
way you handled it taught you too. If you handled it
Right.
poorly, it,
Exactly. And it was learning how to handle that, because I'm in control of very little that goes on in my life. Most things that happen, I have no control over whatsoever. The only thing I can control is my reaction to it. So even being able to admit that, I was well into my late 40s, early 50s before I finally figured out that, look, maybe your opinion just isn't really all that important. So kind of mellow out, take a chill pill, take it in. But then again, how crucial is it that the world know your opinion? It's not at all. So,
well, so with that, so talking about the wisdom and this opinion thing,
mhm,
all that. So as us ourselves, we have lived that history looking back
mhm,
from our vantage point now, but we only have that wisdom accessible to us if we are confronted with something. There's a few options, but one is if we're confronted with something that brings that out of the file cabinet,
mhm,
and then we have that experience to pick and choose which magical trick
mhm.
or tool from the toolbox that we can apply to said issue. It
Sure.
doesn't have to be a physical world issue; it could be anything,
Right.
any question that arises in the brain and whatnot. Um, so we're constantly reinventing or discovering things, even as it stands now, because all that stuff, it's just adding stuff into that, I guess, pay by month garage cubicle that we have
Mhm.
inside our heads. So we're not omnipresent, we're not
Yeah. No.
intelligent.
No.
So we have limitations, but um, things do compound over time,
Right.
as far as knowledge and all sorts of things,
Mhm.
and talking about you know aches and pains and whatnot, just the whole thing.
Oh, sure.
um, it's a very natural thing. um, you know I mean, it doesn't get any more natural than that.
No.
But we have an interesting, as human beings, we have an interesting thing with our consciousness and our, you know, what some people would not like to consider as far as spirituality, and others yes, and there's this whole battle and this and that, back and forth and this and that. But moving back to the way we think and whatnot, and our wisdom and this and that, and the show that I was talking about. there's a bunch of shows like that and stuff, and they do bring up crucial to the day, du jour issues that come up and stuff, and people huddle to these shows, and that's how they consume information and whatnot.
Sure.
And these people, but now we've talked about this before, but and Jim alluded to something there prior. He says, "Well, he'll be okay as far as Tucker Carlson and stuff."
Yeah.
Well, it's not necessarily about Tucker Carlson, as it's the idea of what's going on. It's the principles involved, not necessarily the protagonists and stuff. You could switch the protagonists, and the foundational ideas and concepts are what I'm interested in.
So it was more about the fact that he was 52 than it was the fact that it was him, right?
Oh yeah, they were shocked that he was that age.
Okay. Okay,
But-
gotcha.
But going to the thing, so people huddle around these shows and whatnot, and what's happening is it appears to me that it's more entertainment under the political banner than anything else, because
Yeah.
I was thinking, here's the story, and we talked about this the other day, but we have a show like that, not us, but I'm saying there's a show like that as an example, and they're presenting the public at large with these huge financial, economic, political, social issues,
Mhm.
and it invites the viewer to think that they to opine,
Mhm.
even if it is from their home, but it also invites people to almost suggest that we're in it together, and if only this happened, things would work out, and if um and all that is kind of a bullcrap. So you know what I'm saying? Because number one, we're just we're not all in it together at the level, at certain levels, at the immediate levels. What we are at best. All I'm saying is this. I'm saying a lot of things, but one thing. If one were to look for guidance through talk show hosts or TV personalities, better than those would actually be your local news, because they tell you the weather in your area. They tell you if the shopping carts in your local Walmart are now missing a wheel,
Mhm.
and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
More pertinent to you, because you have no control whether, you know.
But I think you're right, and you stepped on something there. I think you're absolutely right, and it's more for entertainment.
Yeah.
Than it is. I mean, maybe they think they're getting information that way, but if they didn't enjoy it, they wouldn't be there. It's kind of like you and I here. If we didn't enjoy this, we wouldn't be here. If
Right.
those guys didn't enjoy what they were doing, they wouldn't be there. And if their viewers didn't enjoy it,
They wouldn't be there
they
either.
wouldn't be there. Whether they agree with them or not, whether agreement is that, set that aside. In fact, on a lot of those shows, they need some pushback because that gives them validation. I must be doing something right if I'm getting attacked on those kind of shows.
That's a good insight. I just want to say that that's another good point. Continue, but that's another good point.
Yeah. So long as the viewers are there and they're enjoying it, they're doing their job. They're doing what they quote unquote like to or want to do. Because if they didn't, they'd be off doing something else.
So the show, as an example, doesn't have to be that show. It's just a show like that, where there's political whatnots, conversations of a certain persuasion, leaning towards, because you can't be everything for everybody. Without that type of person, there's no pushback. There's no enemy for the other side to combat.
Right.
So the best friend of one political party is the enemy, is their enemy.
Exactly.
At a certain level.
Exactly. And you can use all the flowery language you want. I use it myself. It's checks and balances. Because if everybody agreed, what's the purpose? There is no higher purpose.
Well, but in the meantime, they're feeding off of each other.
Hmm.
The populace at large is watching this, picking a side in hopes that
Hmm.
one will conquer the other.
Right.
But these shows are benefiting from the thing
Hmm.
wholeheartedly because they have an enemy. If no enemy, like you were just saying, if enemies cease to exist, then all of a sudden. So what
Yeah.
I'm getting at is that um, I guess it's like a yin and yang. As much as the one side, whatever that side might be, as opposed to
Hmm.
the other side, whatever side that might be, has the other side to complain about
Hmm.
and to fight against.
Yeah.
In a general sense, this is a general. This is not saying over a particular issue. This is just like in a general sense. If there is no pushback on, I don't know, petroleum, then hog wild and just a bunch of stuff. Well, then
Sure.
we get it. But the point is, on the level of media, then we wouldn't hear about it. There's
Exactly.
no controversy.
Well, and there used to be I won't say a finer line. There was a broader line between hard news and analysis and opinion.
Right.
And in fact, when I was studying journalism, that was something that was harped on all the time. You do not opine.
That's right.
It used to be you would never hear a news reporter say the word I, because that right there was the red flag. This is opinion. And it didn't matter what you were saying. So you would have stupid sentences like, this reporter was on the scene. He's referring to himself without saying I, because that was seen as injecting opinion into the story.
Right.
And that was really, really heavily watched. Now you can't tell the difference between a hard news story and an opinion piece or an analytical piece.
Yeah.
And with a hard news story, you have to stick to the facts because there is libel and slander that laws that cover you. I mean, you cannot knowingly, willfully tell a, a lie. You can't fabricate something about somebody and present it as fact.
Mhm.
But on an opinion, you have a lot more leeway
Yeah.
because your defense is, that's my opinion. I thought that in good faith. Here was the
Or
evidence
not.
I was presented.
Yeah, an
Yeah,
opinion can be even
exactly. So, but now the lines have gotten so close. There are lawsuits all over the place about, well, they lied about this. No, that was my opinion.
right.
That was not hard news. So, I mean, that brings about a bunch of other, you know, potential problems and this, that, and the other. Now, you said something back there about wisdom. I have a theory. Well, no, it's not necessarily a theory. It's a belief that there's an old adage out there, with age comes wisdom. And I think that was just invented by some old guy who didn't want to admit how cynical he was.
Yeah.
Do you think that this wisdom we're supposed to get as we age, do you think it's really wisdom or do you think it's just cynicism?
No, it's a little bit of that of both.
You think so?
Hmm. Well, it's wisdom by default because you know things you didn't know before, in terms of not just knowing them, but knowing a set of circumstances that could potentially unfold due to certain action. Um, Not everybody has the same wisdom, but
Right.
um, I mean, you'd have to be a real. Um, I mean, in order not to learn as you get older, like just by
Yeah.
default, as you get
True.
older, even the a box of rocks, can learn. So there's variations in what, but so I think that there is wisdom. And as far as what was the other one, wisdom and the other one,
Cynicism.
and that comes with the game too, because I mean, you start realizing also bad behavior, and with it comes, if you're lucky, which is the hardest one, is to self critique and
Yeah.
self, but we only self critique and I'm being very free with my we, saying
Mm,
we as a general thing, because who knows what we think.
true.
um because we encompasses everybody. We are lackadaisical with our words too, but we can't help ourselves. See, the
Yeah.
problem with human beings is that at best we have moments,
Yeah. Yeah.
and all the other time there's a bunch of, it's a miracle that crap works
Yeah.
to the
Oh,
degree it,
dude, I'm constantly amazed that this country doesn't break out into 150 million separate fistfights every day,
yeah.
because it really honestly could, you know. And but for some reason we don't. And you're right, it is miraculous that so many things just work. I
Yeah.
mean, when we stop and think about, just pick something dumb, the last time you went and got your driver's license renewed. Yeah, it took a long time. You had to go in, wait for your number, or however your system works in your state, and then get up there and do this, that, and the other, and pay the money. And you go over and get your picture taken, sit down, don't smile. Okay, fine. I'm supposed to look like a criminal or something,
Yeah.
or a prison guard or what have you. But it actually works. It's not a pleasant experience, but it does work,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, yeah, it's
So,
a miracle.
but then again, we look at the dude behind the counter and we go, really? You know, you got this job? Well, I'm glad you're back here where you can't hurt nobody and not out doing something important, but the system still works,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. And that's something for everybody to take away from all this is, well, not from all this, but from this. Just think about it this way. When you run into somebody dumb, remember there were people who were not good enough to have the job that guy's doing. He was the best that interviewed for that position. Okay.
Yeah. Or they could find,
Yeah.
well, the
so
same difference.
so the guy at Burger King that constantly screws up your order, there were people not that good who didn't get the job.
That would have done worse.
Yes, exactly. Um See, Al says it does turn into fist fights, murder and death. It's constantly in the news. Right. Because dog bites man is not a story. Man bites dog is. You're not going to hear about sunshine and green lights. You're not going to hear about a dog that gave birth to puppies. You're only going to hear about the bad stuff.
I think that I think that the there is that. Like, you could say, look what's on the news, and because it is on the news. But
Mhm.
on a statistical thing, most people are just going on about their day to a
Mhm.
great degree,
Exactly.
which is an amazing, on
Exactly.
its own.
And think about that too. Why is it on the news? Because they know we'll watch it. If we didn't watch it, they wouldn't put it on. But they know we'll watch it. It's that sensationalism that gets us and keeps us coming back so they can keep feeding the advertisements in front of us.
It's an amazing thing.
Yeah. They know we'll watch it. They know we'll click on that article. They know we'll spend some time reading it, and they get to throw more ads up in front on the webpage there. And we'll keep coming back to see what the next big story is.
But not everybody.
No, not everybody, of course not. And they know they're not going to get everybody. But if they get somebody, it's good enough.
Well, a certain percentage.
Mm-hmm.
As long as
And
it inks into the society a certain concepts and ideas that get propagated, then
but once they put it up on that page, they've already moved on to something else. They don't care how many people come back and look at it. They'd look at the metrics of the whole website for the week and say, oh, we had X million visitors to the website. Don't care what page they looked at. But, Steve could tell you how many minutes it takes to write up a web page article, and then moved on to the next article.
yeah, but something like, just random stuff. It's
Mhm.
just there for whatever. But
Mhm.
there's a concerted effort in the part of companies or interested parties that have,
Sure.
and that they will push out information
Mhm.
in order for it to propagate into the, And as long as it sits there stirring around and
Mhm.
people become familiar with it, um,
Yeah.
it gets passed around and stuff. And so they know like I'm sure they've done all the studies to give you a good idea of how they produce information to be dropped on the public at large so that it gets blended into the population. I'm sure that's
Oh yeah.
been done.
Oh yeah. And it's studied. It's studied to this day, every day, because they have to know what's going to work and what isn't going to work.
Right.
But just because something didn't work doesn't mean that they're going to. They may give up on that story, but it doesn't mean they're going to give up on that narrative. They just, okay, that's going to trickle down the news cycle. We're going to focus on something else over here. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and Jim just threw out a little gem of wisdom here, and he's absolutely right. It's easier for a person to believe a lie than it is to convince him that he's been duped. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say that the better for my purposes is to always say that. What was the sentence again?
It's easier for a person to believe a lie than it is to convince him that he's been duped.
I'd rather say it like this. Obviously, like that is fine, but I'm self-reflecting, and I would put this on my head and say it's easier for myself to. Oh, it's easier. Let me bring it back. Okay, it's easier for myself, me, not the guy across the street, not the guy that I think is stupid, not the other person, but it's me for myself. And this is not wishful thinking, incidentally, but it's easier for me to believe myself a lie than to convince myself, than for anyone to convince me that I've been duped.
Mhm.
That statement, the reason I would use that, and the reason I came up with that now is because I would do that to myself, because you have to switch focal positions. And I'm using Jim's statement as an example because it's such a good one.
Mhm.
Because we could fool ourselves,
Mhm.
and we do all the time.
Right.
And
Because
so, yeah,
that statement right there,
applies to us.
well, but it also puts everything out there. It's not me. I'm not foolish enough to have been duped by this.
Right.
So therefore that must have been the truth because I'm too smart to be fooled.
Yeah. If we took a little survey, I'm sure that all of us, a list of key elements, would sit in some cases on different sides of different positions of ideas.
Mhm.
And then we have to think, well, who's the one being duped?
Yeah.
Because everybody thinks they're right.
Well, yeah,
And
yeah,
I can
absolutely.
guarantee, yeah, I can guarantee you that
Mhm.
everybody would have, in some cases, different points of views. So how do you work
Oh,
that out?
absolutely. And that could go in any topic and any discussion. Who's the greatest basketball player that's ever lived? Well, you could, everybody thinks that their favorite player
Is the
is.
best one,
So it's kind of a moot point. Why even argue it? Why even discuss it?
right? But if
There
it
are
gets to something complicated,
right. But that's the problem. The more complicated it gets, the more people uh, just my observation, the more people I think want to dig in because it, to believe you're duped, to admit you have been duped by something on a simple question is one thing. But when you think you understand a complex thing like the economy,
right?
I understand very little about it, but I don't sweat it because it's going to do what it does, whether I'm worried about it or not.
Right.
But for me to sit here and try to tell you I know how the economy works because I listened to some guy on the radio,
It's not a
that's
complete picture.
yeah, you know,
At best, it's a little smidget of an idea.
especially if later on it turns out that this guy on the radio was just trying to sell books and he didn't know what he was talking about. So it's easier for me to believe that lie than it is to say, oh no, I
The
was fooled. I was an idiot.
the problem also is that the picture is also slightly different too in terms of this.
Hmm.
Everybody is slightly right.
Sure. Sure. I mean, for the most part, yeah. I mean, it would have to
Everybody
be
is slightly
it would
right.
have to be a pretty extreme case for that not to be a true statement. But when it comes to opinions, yeah, I mean, but it just again, it just depends on your reaction to what things are.
Well, the conquering of this city in Mesopotamia was great, and all the people that are enjoying the banquet are saying it sure was. Meanwhile, the people out there, if you ask them, the ones that were conquered, they'll say, "Well, wait a second, this wasn't great."
Yeah, because this
So
was our home. We didn't do anything.
yeah, so you know,
Yeah, sorry you had a beef with our king, but we were just sitting here milking cows. We didn't have nothing to do with that.
right. So
Thanks
there's
for burning down my house.
yeah, there's a few vantage point issues
Hmm.
that but we can't be everywhere at once either. But it's good to at
No.
least. So I guess one lesson is, which is difficult, that and I don't practice it as much as I should, but I think it's an important is not to be rash.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of self-reflection and a lot of
Or to remember that being rash is bad. I don't even want to say not to be rash because
yeah, because you go
we are
off
rash
half
all the time.
cocked, Yeah, we are. We really are.
That's the problem. But it's all within the spectrum of human beings.
Hmm.
That's also the thing. We have no
But
we have no choice.
then again,
Right.
it's also driven into a strike while the iron is hot. Substance over symbolism, actions speak louder than words. So people are afraid to not do anything. People are afraid to think things through. We got to act. We got to act now.
Yeah.
Operators are standing by. Didn't you hear him?
Yeah.
And Jim says, not me. That Nigerian prince will be sending my money any day now. Yeah. Prime example. They wouldn't keep doing the Nigerian prince thing if it didn't work.
There's a bunch of scams going on.
Oh,
All the time.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we don't know all of them.
So again, is it easier to believe the Nigerian prince lie or admit that you've been duped, you've been taken? Well, when your bank account's gone and the sheriff is knocking on the door to get you out of that house because it's been sold online to somebody else through Zillow, you've been duped, dude. You can believe it.
Yeah.
So,
But humans are impossible.
no, yeah, we are. I don't know. Again, sometimes it amazes me that things do work.
It
But,
is. It's an amazing thing.
let's see.
Do you want
Yeah.
to open up the
Okay.
phone lines?
We can open up the phone lines and let some people on. Al has again, is that knowledge or cynicism? Yeah, I think, yeah. Are you going to post the link? You want me to?
Yeah, in the chat, right?
Okay, yeah, just throw it in the chat there. All right, we're going to open up the phone lines. Come on in, take off your skin, rattle around in your bones. Join us. Turn your radio down, no swearing allowed. Speak clearly into the microphone and make mama proud. Come and join us. Our lines are open.
And you can bring your own subject if you like too.
That's one thing the Army taught me was how to talk trash on a roll. Let's see here. Al says to know that we know what we know, and to know that we do not know what we do not know. That is true knowledge. Well, see, I was taught something else, Al. I was taught that knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom was knowing not to put one in a fruit salad.
Yeah. But that statement of Al's is, if to know what we know and to know that we do not know what we do not know is true knowledge. It's just true knowledge that we know that we do not know certain things.
Yeah.
That's the extent of it.
Right. Yeah. We take a lot of things like that for granted. Like number one, that we actually know what it means,
Mm-hmm.
but it's flowery language and it
Yeah.
sounds deeply philosophical, but you're absolutely right. It's knowledge on that one specific thing.
Well, if you have, if you know that you know what you know,
Mhm.
and then you know the things you don't know. Well, first, the things you don't know, you know that you don't know certain things. It's a start,
Mhm.
but you can lie to yourself and hide that under the rug and act like you know.
Yeah.
So there's also something to do with humility involved in it, but
Sure.
there's also a layer of things that you do not know,
Mhm.
that hasn't crossed your mind that you don't know. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. So you don't know that you don't know them because you don't know it exists.
exactly.
Exactly. It's kind of like they say, well, you can tell a lot of person by the way they treat a dog. No, you can just tell how they treat a dog. You
You
can't
can
tell if their
infer.
house is a mess. You can't tell if they know how to drive. Do they have a job? Do they? I mean, maybe you can tell a little something about their personality, but you can't tell a lot about a person. All you can tell is how they treat a dog.
Yeah, but
So
I would sit firmly on if they treat a dog poorly. I would sit firmly, and that's a person that's not uh, a good person,
oh,
kind
I would
person.
agree with you on that. Uh-oh. We beamed him up. There he is.
Yay!
What's going on,
Quick,
Al?
I'm trying to turn off the.
Well, I'll kick you out until you're ready.
There you go. That was quick. No, I muted the channel now. It's
I
muted.
don't let no grass grow under my
It
feet.
is muted.
All right.
And look
Well,
what I have. I have a banana. Banana for scale.
so do I. But mine has numbers on it.
No, yeah, really.
And you want to know the funny part? It's accurate.
Oh my God.
I checked it against my tape measure.
I thought I'd be good to just have banana, but that
You are
that right
you
there,
are good because this is not a very good source of potassium.
that right there.
Give me 1 second.
Okay. Patrick, God bless his soul. Patrick of Patrick's Workshop made that and sent it to me along with a couple of parts that I ordered from him a few years back. Because I was constantly saying, "Oh man, I need a banana for scale," and
Yes, I know.
this thing showed up in the box when he sent me a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" So, if you got a 3D printer, go on Thingiverse and look for it.
You know, I've heard banana for scale, and I've heard the joke that's kind of gone around, right?
Sure.
I don't know if joke is the right word, but that's the reason I brought the banana, and lo and behold, you knew exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you
Oh
had it.
yeah.
You had it. Yeah.
And speaking of bananas, all right.
Bananarama.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How we doing
baby.
tonight? How we doing tonight, Greg?
Not bad.
All right. All right.
Still here.
Yeah.
How
I hear
is it
you.
in the Great White North?
Getting awfully gray and brown.
Is it really?
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Still cold though, right?
Well, it's above freezing, but it's not hot.
Oh my God, we're supposed to be in the 90s by this coming weekend.
Where you
Like,
go?
yeah, like
Giver.
that yesterday, the day before, yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah. No, I'm not ready for it to be that hot this early.
But it did cool down.
Mhm.
It has. So
Well, we're just now starting to warm up. So let me throw that at you guys here. I'm kind of reflecting on getting old. I used to BS myself. I say, well, I'm getting older. No, I'm not. I'm getting old. That's all there is to it. Quit trying to sugarcoat it, Mark. At what point did you stop, take a look, and say, wow, man, maybe I am kind of need to slow down a little bit?
I don't know about need to slow down, but had to slow down because
Yeah.
I couldn't keep up to my mental self.
Yeah.
You know what I
That,
mean? Like, oh, I can do this and this and this today. No,
yeah. Well, my brain still does that.
that's what I'm saying. You can't keep up to your mental self.
Mhm.
But, and when did that happen? Well, it's
Mhm.
been a slow progression. I guess I noticed the first time when I turned 40, or just after I turned 40,
Mhm.
things don't move along as the way I used to be able to move them along, you know.
Mhm.
And it's a, you know, the old thing, oh, it's a downward slope after 40. Well, I'll believe it, you know.
Mm, I
And it
don't.
only gets worse. It's a progressing, it's a steeper and steeper hill.
I don't know. I didn't feel it in my 40s. I started feeling it in my 50s, but it was in the back of my mind in my 40s. You know, because that's when it really started to bother me. The whole, you've heard the joke, you know, walking, you're standing in the middle of a room and can't figure out why the hell you went in there. You know, that's when that started happening with
Yeah,
me.
I think I agree with you on that, Mark. I think that's when it started happening for me too. I started going, "What? Why am I?"
Yeah.
But
Or,
amazing. I retrace my steps back, and I remember, and that's what I don't get, you know. And then
yeah,
I go,
I'd get up out of this chair and go down to the other end to the bedroom down the other end of the house and stand in the middle and go, why the hell did I come in here? Turn around and come down. And as soon as I sit down and go, oh, yeah, that's what I was going to do. And
yeah,
then get up and go do it again.
yeah,
But that happens that happened to me somewhat as because that's you're focused on something and then
Mm-hmm.
you forget what
Yeah.
the heck you went in the room for. But that happens all across.
Or even something like it to me, it's related. I can't remember the name of something. I can't remember the word,
oh,
you know.
that's been happening more and more and more to me, and I've even realized it.
I can see the thing. I can pick it up. I can hold it in my hand. I can hand it to you. I
Well,
can't tell you what the hell it's called.
not
You can
quite
be
that.
looking, you can be looking at an old friend across the
Mm-hmm.
room, and
Mm-hmm.
I
you
forget his name.
cannot think her name is, but
Well,
you know who they are.
My
But that
cousin
happens a lot.
You just can't spit it out.
my cousin got married here a few years back, and of course the whole family got together for the wedding and everything else, and about 2/3 of the people I shook hands with, and it's been a long time, I haven't seen you forever. About 2/3 of them I to this day couldn't tell you who they were. They're my relatives, and
yeah,
I don't know their names. I don't know who they are,
yeah,
you know.
And they're your
Well,
relatives.
Yeah.
well, my one of my cousins and I used to go to these. They when somebody up here, basically in Manitoba, gets married, they have what they call a social evening,
Hmm. Yeah.
and it's a fundraiser. And so
Yeah.
you rent a hall, you get canned music, or you can have a band if you want. You sell alcohol, and now what it is, instead of selling the alcohol to make the money, you get donated prizes. But anyway, what we do, like a bunch of our cousins would, their kids were getting married, and so we, you know, support them by going to this thing. And he says to me one time, "Well, you ready to go play Name That Cousin?"
Yeah. That's about it. That's about it.
And if we think we get that right, then we can go name that cousin's kid. You know, oh my god.
Let's see. Jim Dockrell says take 7 trips around the house to gather things to do something. And by the time you got it all together, you wonder what all this stuff is for. Yeah. Yeah. I'll go outside to the shed to shoot a video. And it's not like I've never done this before. Okay. I've got kind of a track record established here. I'll go outside, get the lights turned on, get the camera set up. I'll come back in here, get the SD card from the camera, go outside, come back in here, grab the digital recorder and microphone so I can record sound while I'm shooting that video. You'd think I'd learn to gather all this stuff up, but no, what fun would that be? Why would you want to make 1 trip when 4 would do it just fine? You know?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That sounds like the first 2 hours of starting up my stream, it just kind of like, oh, I need this. Oh, I need
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess that's why I like riding my motorcycle and being retired. You know, I get on the damn thing. I got nowhere to be all day to get there, and there's no test. You know, it just rides.
Yeah, the test is getting back home.
Right.
You just
Yeah,
didn't
it
know
is.
it was a test.
But yeah, it's
Well, I got my cell phone with me, so I can phone my wife and say, "Where am I?"
Where the hell am I? Jim says you get that more exercise that way when you're. Yeah, I need to ask my doctor that. Does running back and forth between the shed and the house, does that count as cardio?
Mhm.
it counts as steps, don't it?
You know, I don't even keep track of that kind of stuff. I don't know.
Hey, the reason I say that is because I read today, and I don't know if he was exaggerating. Of course, Javi doesn't exaggerate, but he said he did 10,000 steps, and it's still, and I can't remember exactly what it was. It still was like, you know, I'm exaggerating, 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay, I don't remember exactly, but it's like, man, I thought 8,000 steps was the daily steps, and he'd already reached 14,000.
How does he know? Did he
I
count
don't
each
know.
one?
Maybe he's got a watch or something that you know.
Those Apple Watches will count
Yeah.
them both.
I mean, I would
But
imagine.
it'll also calculate the steps if you're doing something with your arms, you know, and it
Flailing
is-
around.
yeah,
and he may
exactly.
be. And he may be.
It thinks you're walking.
He
You know how
may
people walk with their arms swinging, sort of deal.
Oh yeah,
That's what it does. So
So you can cheat.
yeah.
But
Going
yeah,
up
well,
and down a ladder.
be careful what you do.
Mm-hmm.
But
You know,
14,000 guys. I'm lucky if I reach 1,400.
Well, see, what you could do is you could just walk until your knees hurt. Look down at the watch and say, okay, that's 8,000 steps. So if I walk until my knees hurt, I'm done.
Yeah.
that's to the bathroom and back. Oh,
Yeah, I know. And depending upon what day of the week it is, that could be like from the bedroom into the coffee maker. You know,
There could be what you call those walking things that what is it called, the walking thing in the house?
the treadmill.
Treadmill.
Yeah,
That's a good idea. With
Yeah.
wheels on it, so you walk and it makes the treadmill walk wherever you go.
Yeah.
No mind that you can't fit it in the bathroom when you roll in, but you
might as well
get off.
just
And
well
you-
walk to where you're going.
and you put it on a 45-degree angle, so it's uphill all around the house.
Yeah. Just put wheels on the darn thing.
So I get it now. So you're on the treadmill, and the treadmill is moving around as you're walking on the treadmill.
You make it
supply the
go.
power- Yeah, you supply the power for the treadmill to tread.
Yeah.
And it mills around the house.
So if you got to go to the mailbox, good luck.
Yeah.
As ridiculous as that sound, people would buy it.
Well, you know.
But it
Yeah.
has to be a 1980s sized one, so you can barely fit it anywhere.
Oh my
If
God.
you if you put the right size wheels on it
Quick, let's
and
patent
you
it.
and you marketed it the right way,
Yeah,
you could
it's all
sell
marketing.
those.
Yeah, you come up with some kind of catchy name, and you know,
Mhm.
make some kind of memes or not memes,
Mhm.
but they call them, you know, talks about it and get it out there that it starts trending. Oh man,
Florida
that's
Man exercise machine.
yeah,
What?
there you go.
What'd you call it?
The Florida Man exercise machine with a gator as the thing.
Gator is inspiration behind you.
Yeah, that's the motivation to keep going.
We
Yeah.
could attach a little gator in the back and it snaps if you don't go fast enough.
Yep.
You can change the degree.
Speaking of treadmills, I go to these they call them Threshermen's reunions and stuff like that. It's old farm equipment shows. You know, people get together and I saw a treadmill, and it was for horses. And but what it was powering was a sawmill, like a one of those big old buzz saws.
Mhm.
And I thought, wow, that's before steam, or well, maybe it might be the same time as steam, but when it was a cheaper
Mhm.
option, and still using horses. I thought that was kind of neat. I'm thinking these poor horses, but then you've also seen the ones where the horse goes around and round, like, and they use it like for grinding,
Yeah.
corn or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
They would use oxen and things like that, and that was their life, was to just
Mhm.
walk in a circle.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people thinking we're heading back to those times. There's a lot of people wishing that we would go back to those times. Personally, I'm not a fan of septicemia. I'll take my current standard of living. If you want to move up into the mountains of wherever and live your life in a yurt, feel free. Just don't demand I do it,
How
because
about
I'm doing it.
like a little cap, baseball cap, with a solar panel on it, and it has USB plugins on the side, so you have
There you
all your
go.
computer.
There you go. See that right there is creative thinking.
You
Eloy.
think so?
That
That's
right
a
there,
dumbass
yes.
idea.
Yeah,
I have,
that right there.
Eloy, I have seen.
Yeah.
These were a few years back.
So
It
did I
was
just invent something or no?
It was
No.
it was like a hard hat almost, not quite, for like on a construction site. Had a solar panel on top and a little DC fan on the front
Yeah.
I've
to
I've
keep
seen it.
you cool.
I've seen
Al?
a styrofoam pith helmet that
Al,
way.
if you like where that came from, and I know that you're a studious person and you dabble in university life, so here's one, just on the same vein: baseball cap with one of those metal pencil sharpeners from back in the day right on top, so you never go with a broken pen. And it's just
Oh my God.
And
Oh
so-
my God.
you do one of these.
Oh dear. Yeah. It's like, wait, I lost where we're. It's
Did
like,
that one?
yeah.
Did
right?
that one exceed? Did that? No, I'm talking about the old, like
The
freaking.
No.
wind of grind 'em, like
No.
I've got mounted
No.
on my wall.
I'd use the solar cell cap, okay, or hat in my case, because I probably need much more surface area for
Mhm.
the solar panels. And
Sombrero.
I'd have this one, and I'm not gonna. Yeah. And then I'd have this one. It'd probably be like my dunce cap, right? I just would stick it up there. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, there's my sharpened pencil, and it's solar powered. Now there's an invention that I don't think has been invented yet.
How about a solar powered shirt, flexible,
Yeah, they've got solar
attracts
powered
electricity and heat into, and then on the side somewhere it has the plug.
They definitely have solar celled hats, and they have smart hats, which transmit vital information. It's just kind of like the Apple Watch, receives information. This transmits it out. So best of both worlds, maybe. I don't know.
I just thought of a nice little rice bowl to get into, and Al, this may be right up your alley. You're the electronics guy. You could figure out how to do this. A solar cell hat that feeds a battery pack on your belt.
Yes.
You walk around the fairgrounds or the flea market or whatever event or what have you, and you charge people $10 to charge their cell phones.
There you go. An additional, in fact, there's a business model developing there.
But
Okay.
wait a second,
Yeah.
are you talking about you carry it with your person and you walk around?
Yeah, you wearing a belt or a harness with the battery
Okay.
pack, and your solar hat keeps that battery pack charged.
Well, let me.
And you have a little sign on the back or front, charge your cell phone, $10.
I like it, but you know what? Why not up it a notch? You have another strap going around your neck and waist on this side, and you have hot beverage, cool hot beverages, and freaking like,
There you go.
dude, it's like, and then maybe one of those little. Remember those propeller with the
Yeah.
different.
Well, that's for when it's cloudy, you've got a wind turbine.
See, here's the
A little
thing.
propeller.
Here's the thing. Why the business model wouldn't work though, other than the.
I'm joking, right? I'm joking. I'm bull crapping.
You are.
Hell yeah, well, you know that.
I thought you were being. Jeez, man.
Continue.
Anyway, there are backpacks that are solar celled, right? I mean,
Mhm.
So right there it goes out the window. Everybody can plug into their own backpack to
But-
recharge their device.
But
they
how
don't
many
have
people
underwear.
have them? How many people have them?
Only the one that's selling the confections
See?
at the fair.
Well, the thing, yeah. If you're the guy
7
with the cold lemonade and everybody
Right.
else is
There you
thirsty,
go. There you go.
Exactly. 7-Eleven did not make money by selling at discount prices. They made money by being convenient right there where
Oh,
you
yeah.
need it.
True. I
So,
still love Slurpees till this day. I mean, it's
oh yeah, exactly. And you ain't telling Greg nothing. I mean, he's in the Slurpee capital of the world. But you're Johnny on the spot. You're right there. And if they ain't got their solar backpack, but you got yours, yeah, I'll
right.
charge you $10.
You have power. You have the
Literally.
power.
$10 is minimum wage. You can only deal with one person at a time.
Yeah, but no, you have multiple outlets on that.
Multiple
Wait a sec.
You could be
multiple
standing there
feeds.
drinking a Pepsi with 6 people plugged into you, checking their emails
Yeah,
or texting.
multiple
Well,
ports to
I'm not-
plug
I'm
into.
not- Why don't you? Okay, so why don't you do all that you're saying while you're riding the walkable treadmill that I just invented
There
a
you go.
couple of
And
minutes
that
ago?
gets you from point A to point B that much faster because you use gear reduction. So every step you take moves the treadmill 4 steps.
And if you use regenerative braking on the treadmill,
That
because
could charge the
later you have to
batteries
stop,
too. Mhm.
that'll also charge it back up too.
You can also, have people that want a ride, like a taxi or Uber,
Mhm.
jump on, and so basically we're building this whole society built on this one guy's 2
Yeah.
legs.
Yeah.
well, you could put a generator on the treadmill and charge people to ride it like the little horse in front of the
Yeah. In front of the drugstore, put in
Yeah,
a
right,
quarter
Yeah,
and
the 5 and 10, the 5 and 10, Woolworths,
We can fit a
Kreger's.
little. We can fit a little somewhere off the side of that, like one of those little revolving wire racks, and have like sunglasses and all earrings and stuff, and just
Yeah,
just put
yeah.
a
Eloy,
Well, that's in the backpack, yeah.
Eloy. Did
Yeah.
Zaire have a little pony outside that you put the quarter in?
Yeah.
Didn't it? Wasn't that the?
Are you
yeah.
talking about my Zayres? And it wasn't Zayres for us; it was Side.
Side.
We're going to Sides. Zayres was I guess there was a couple or so stores, and it was the equivalent of a Kmart, like a Kmart slash,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, Kmart. Yeah.
And they sold all the good stuff, and it was a very typical thing of the era. And yeah, outside, like your typical what you would have at a Kmart or
Yeah,
in some
or
other
even in a little enclosed area inside as you walk in. Maybe out of the heat outside. But I remember them being out there. But yeah.
Which one did you frequent?
I don't even remember. But the one I remember was actually in Chicago. Okay.
Oh,
That was-
a Cides or a Zayres in Chicago.
Yeah. But I
Did you? Well, I'm sorry, but in Chicago, whenever it is that you ended up there, was there some sort of Cuban community occurring?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if occurring. There was a bunch of Hispanics and Puerto Ricans, and I mean, there was where my parents lived was kind of like Mexican and Puerto Rican and Spanish, and it was like that. I mean, they had even a Cuban store, and some a cafe, and
So in Chicago outskirts somewhere, there
about
was some sort of
about 15 miles west on Lake Street. I mean, if you take Google and just go 15 miles west on Lake Street. Yeah.
So they exiles ended up there to some degree. Some,
I guess I don't really know the history behind how the area evolved, but there was a lot of immigrants that actually settled in Maywood, in Maywood, Melrose Park too. But Maywood mostly is what I remember.
because I mean, I'm literally in the epicenter of that whole. So when you said Zayres, it took me to the epicenter of Zayres in context of what the exile community would have gone
on
to.
on 120 at 127th, or where was the Zaire?
No, the one that we used to go was like Flagler-ish, like 7th,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know the cross street. It was that where the fire roughly in the world of where that big ass Firestone, huge. See, I don't know if you know the references. Like I don't know. To me, I've never asked you, but it sounds like you guys ended up here and then took off.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Exactly.
uh, there's a corner that's very Miami, pre-Cuban, but the point is that it's got a Firestone, huge friggin', and it's like it almost looks like this under construction constantly type of like huge factory like thing, and that's where people would repair stuff and whatnot. And then across the way is all these little old school stores in a row,
Strip mall type.
strip mall type, and
Yeah.
the whole intersection is like come and purchase on weekends, and so that's what people. So near there was the Zires or Zayers
Yeah,
um,
there's.
that we
See,
used to go to. Yeah.
on 27th, I think is what it was. I can't remember exactly. I'm starting to forget where stuff was, but I remember like there was a mall.
You were deprived of the of this like overwhelming Cuban experience
Oh
here,
yeah, oh yeah.
because this
We
is
left.
overkill. This
Yeah.
is just so that you know, this is like
Yeah.
overkill. So you were deprived, or you can look at it as you blessed. It
I
depends
I
which way you
I,
want to go.
I exiled myself from exile, right? I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. And I didn't necessarily, but yes, I did. I guess because my parents, man, I'm starting to even forget. But my parents moved us to Chicago. We followed basically work. Really, is why they went up there. You know, they had somebody that knew somebody to get them into the into dual fast actually, and they started out at an envelope company, running the machine and cutting the envelopes and stuff. I mean, I can't remember the name of the company, but it's an envelope company that was pretty prominent. But anyway, Dad went to work at Dual Fast, which
At
was
what?
at Dual Fast Corporation. They make staplers and fasteners and stuff like that. But so that kept them there in the Chicago area. In the meantime, we had left the Northwest, okay, and Northwest, right? Northwest, 121st Court and 19th, I think, or something like that, somewhere in there. That I do almost remember. But anyway, we left there, and we had been in Hialeah. Yeah, we had lived in Hialeah, which was kind of like our entry point, and then moved to the Northwest area, to Miami Heights, right? Isn't that what it's called? I think, but.
To me, Hialeah is just Hialeah. I don't know the other name, but okay.
Well, no, north of there, northwest of there.
Okay.
Anyway, and then we moved to Chicago. A fascinating job, indeed, Jim, indeed. And then from Chicago, I graduated in about 79. This is about 10 years apart, actually. Although I did visit Chicago with my aunt and my uncle a lot between the official moves. So that puts us at 79, and then I left, joined the Air Force, and took off. And that's when I exiled myself from my family, if you want to call it that, because I did. I just left, and they moved back to Hialeah. Yeah, and then were there for a while, and then sold the house they had there, and then moved up to Lakeland to exile themselves from Hialeah. Yeah, it's. But some of my most memorable moments was eating at Lila's restaurant. That was to
Where?
me Lilacs. Lilacs. It was a steak, a Cuban steak franchise with skirt steak, and these thin potatoes, these thin French fries. Oh my God, with onions on top and maybe a little mojito if you asked, but anyway, that was my favorite restaurant back then, and it was a chain of them.
Well,
Three or
do you
four-
re-
I
do
think
you
they're
rem- Do you remember a chain, just as out of curiosity, a chain called Lums? Do any of
Yes.
you guys remember
Yes.
Lums?
Yes.
Chinese?
Yeah. No, it's like Denny's, like,
Yeah,
right?
Okay. We
it's like
we
an
had a
all.
Lums here and it's Chinese.
It was like an all around
Yeah.
American restaurant.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I remember Lums as a kid because then it disappeared because it had these. When we'd sit and eat, it had these. Do you remember those cups that were made out of red plastic with bumps on them that were so typical at a certain era back in the day? They had them at Pizza Hut too. Um, I remember those sitting at Lums because that was such a weird thing to. It was plastic and granular. The darn cup, whatever.
Well, there it is right there. Lums was started in 1956 in Miami Beach
Oh well, then that's the reason for that.
and it closed down in 1982.
Yeah.
Never got up here
Yeah.
that I know of.
Yeah, it was just in Florida.
I remember. Oh well, the last thing, Al, or anything else you'd like to add, but I do want to ask,
Mhm.
what age were you when your folks and yourself crossed the Straits of Gibraltar?
The 67.
Okay, so the Freedom Flights.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
I had
so, yeah.
I had a nucleo number. I have a nucleo number and everything.
That's amazing, dude. How old were you?
7.
Holy
Actually
smokes.
6. Actually 6, because it was March and I hadn't quite yet turned 7.
That's insane, dude.
Yeah.
You had no idea what the hell was happening, did you?
Well, actually, I did. Yes.
Did you?
Yes. I remember, and I've mentioned this several times. I remember sitting in, kind of like getting up on these benches at Mariel Airport, which is where we left from, and kind of sitting in the corner and knowing that we were going to have to be there all night long. But I knew that we were leaving and we were coming over here. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Believe me, that whole 6, 7, 8, we were in Hialeah, and then 9, 10, we were in North Miami.
You were a mover and shaker from the
Yeah.
beginning.
And then 11 and 12, we were in Miami and in Chicago for the weekend, for the summers. And then, yeah, it's coming all back to me. 14, I was still in Florida, but yet visiting Chicago. And then 15, we moved to Chicago. And I remember where we lived and stuff. I even remember the address, 1018 North Lathrop.
You just ousted a whole family of.
There's a family out there going, "Oh, great, thanks."
Yeah, 1018 North Lathrop. If you live in that in Forest Park, I'll be specific. But anyway, yeah, outed, doxed.
Our many fans, please do not bum rush and ask for autographs.
Yes, leave that family alone. Al doesn't live there anymore.
I lived on Forest, not in the forest, but on the forest, with 2 R's.
Run, Forrest, run. Linda says she remembers the Lums in SoCal. I looked them up. There were 400 Lums throughout the continental U.S., Hawaii, and Guam and Puerto Rico.
And how did it start? What did they purchase?
In Miami Beach, he said.
Wasn't it a hot dog stand for like $10,000?
Let me see.
I didn't know that part.
Let me see. It was founded in 1956 in Miami Beach. Yes, they purchased Lum's hot dog stand for $10,000. It was 2 brothers, Stuart and Clifford Perlman.
And there you go. It proves that I too can Google.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but at this point, if we can't Google, we're just completely lost. But no, so that's very interesting, Al. What a thing to have experienced, you know.
Okay. The company was liquidated, but some of the franchises stayed in operation. So there are still a couple of them around.
I know Sweetwater, it might have been done with by that time, but Sweetwater had one in the shopping center that I go to all my life. It had one, and then it closed down. It became something. No, it stayed empty for a long. No, it closed down and it became a Hardee's.
Oh.
And my father was happy with the Hardee's. This was way back then. I mean, I think that everything was in black and white still, just kidding. But it was a Hardee's.
Before there was, okay.
And then it got shut down, and then it got tore down, and stuff evolved as it went. So I walk around just as a note, just with what Al's saying. I am literally in the same place that I have been for the past almost going on half a century. Shy by slight, where I've been for the most part. I mean, I have taken excursions, but the point is not that. The point is that the transformations and stories, every corner across this town is a layer of history before it is what it is now. That's how insane. Like, I can look at something and see it for what it is right now, but I know that right behind it is a million other things. So it's a very... Go ahead.
Can I give an example? I know exactly what you mean, and it is literal. It is literal. There is a brick building from the 1900s, or I don't know, 1900s, 1800s, back early 1900s, maybe 1800s. Honestly, I don't know.
You want to push it into the 1800s. I know it.
I want to push it in there because it was like one of the first buildings in Odessa. So maybe late 1800s, early 1900s. And I can look it up if you want me to. But my point is, really quick, is this thing is a Boy Scouts, I don't know, den or whatever you call it. The Boy Scouts is housed in that building.
In this old turn of the century.
Yeah, exactly. And behind it, there's this big sign that says, Boy Scouts of America, whatever. Behind it, there are these letters drawn in white paint that say drugs. Okay, and I'm sure they're preserving that. But talk about layers. That has been layered, purposely, in fact, to get rid of the I mean, who wants drugs written on the Boy Scouts, right? But anyway, it just reminded me of that.
You want to know one thing? So that's an interesting thing. But I just to say, the idea, especially back in the 80s, growing up, because I'm younger than you guys by anywhere between a decade to about 500 years. I'm sorry, I'm kidding. So in the 80s, nobody liked that joke. It's funny.
I didn't get it.
You have to know your crowd.
Damn whippersnappers.
You have to know your crowd, and I ruined the first. Well, anyways, in the 80s, we had this thing called, and I'm sure you'll tell us if it happened slightly before or after. We had this thing of like, just say no to the ganja and all that other stuff. Well,
wasn't that Nancy Reagan?
Yes, it was.
Yes. Well, okay, so here's the thing. We were getting that information of just say no, and it was like the most scary thing because you got to be careful. But I won't tell you how that turned out for half of the population in Miami. But putting that to the side, there was conflicting messages because, like what Al was saying, there were things like Eckerd, drugs, something else, drugs. Yep. There was even a thing in Coral Gables. Half of the signage was like huge, like 2 people tall, huge, and it said drugs. And underneath, you could have like omelets and stuff. So we had conflicting issues with messaging.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big thing. Pay less drugs. Do you remember pay less drugstores?
I
don't remember that.
No, but I remember Jewel drugstores.
Okay, Jewel was East Coast.
Wait, that's Osco. Sorry.
Well, Jewel was on the East Coast. We had Payless Drugs out here. It was kind of like the Kmart and the Walmart of the day. They did have the prescription counter, and you could go buy, over the counter, cold remedies and aspirin and things like that. Yeah, but it was also junk. They had a small toy section. They had an outdoor section. They had a limited amount of men's and women's clothes, but it was still big sign, all Payless Drugs.
So
We had
Mark,
Rexall drugs up here.
Yeah, Rexall was another one that we had.
I was gonna throw over to Greg. Did you ever hear? I was gonna do one, but I'm ruining it by saying I'm gonna say, Greg, did you ever hear about Manitoba drugs and Slurpees Emporium or some stupid crap like that? It's just if you take something that's irrelevant and you attach it to like something that somebody is familiar with, it makes it silly enough that you can push it out there. This first thing that when Mark was saying that, I said there's got to be something silly to say about Greg. Anyways, continue.
But you're 100% right about a story behind every building and an evolution behind every building. I was just looking for, there used to be a photo bucket library by a local guy here who did a lot of research and collected old photos of this area. And I just now discovered today that photo bucket library has been taken down, but it was a picture in there from 1917 of a hardware store on one particular corner downtown. And I can remember taking my stepson into that hardware store in about 1980. 88, 89. He had a little radio controlled dune buggy and a gear strip, and we went into that hardware store to see if we could find another gear of the same size. We found one, put it together, and he was back on the road. But I took him into that thing 80 years after that photo was taken of that hardware store being in business there.
Wow. See,
They closed down that hardware store in the 90s sometime, and it became a little Italian restaurant. But the business is still in business, and they moved out here onto the highway. I still go in there on occasion. So the family still owns the business and it's still up and running.
So I'm sure other people have ideas here. I just want to throw this one because it made me think of Mark can't freaking talk without me saying, "Oh yeah, wait, oh yeah." I don't know what the hell it is. Actually,
I'm just a relatable guy. That's all there is to it.
So, to further that, actually, it was started. Al was the one that initiated. I just totally shut your butt down with the initiation of the comment. So it reminds me. We totally took the
let me say something real quick.
Okay, sure.
Regarding drugs, and I think Jim Doctoral pointed it out, right? That we called them pharmacies, not drugstores. That actually was a transition from Rexall Drugs to CVS Pharmacy, and I'm sure Mrs. Reagan had something to do with it. But it kind of I don't know what to call it. Kind of I don't know, changed, I guess.
Yes.
So I'm not going to get controversial because I have two layers of things. And if I say one thing, it's going to ruin the other. And if I say the other, it ruins the one thing about that. But I'll just say it this way. For us here in the greater Miami area, in our neck of the woods, looking back, I think it was a great thing because it kept people slightly away from bad things. So, but that's not necessarily the case.
No, it made money for a lot of people, is what it did.
It made money for a lot of sign makers.
So, but moving that, or shelving that for half a second, just to with what Mark was saying. So, I used to work in a place called Lecter's, which was housewares, in the mall. And when I went to work there, I was working in a place that prior was the Barefoot Mailman, which was like a novelty store with all sorts of masks and all this and that. Record, silver record and platinum record and, makeshift stuff and knives and weird things, gadgets and all that. And I worked in the place where that used to be, which in my reckoning was a much better store because it was loaded with all sorts of fun. But now I was working in it as a kitchen place, and we're talking across the 80s in terms of the change. Like in the beginning of the 80s, a little kid growing up, and I'm going to that store and other stores, and it was so much fun. And then as I was older enough to work, it was gone, and now something else was there, and I was working in it. Well, today, as of recent era, it's a freaking women's clothes and purse emporium.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
walk by and I'm like, man, I've seen 3 different iterations of what was there, and it's like it's one of those. So I'll ask you guys, and if you have something else, fine. But I'll just throw this out, and whoever wants, do you have a similar thing? Well, Mark kind of hinted at it, but do you all in your respective areas have something where you could say that was this, but now it's that, and then before that it was that?
Oh yeah.
No
Linda doesn't like to ride around town with me anymore because I've become my grandfather. Oh, that used to be as we drive past it, you know.
Mhm.
There was a
Well,
place,
that-
there was a burger joint when I was young called Jack's Drive-In, and it was the stereotypical 1950s, early 60s drive-in burger joint that you pulled in, and it had the menu right there with the speaker, and you ordered, and the car hop brought out your food, put the little tray on the window. You paid her, and she went in and brought you back your change. Then you ate in the car right there, listening to the radio. Then that closed down. It became a pizza joint. Then that closed down and it became something else. I was gone at the time. I don't know what else it became after that. Now it's a sign shop. You can go have signs made or banners printed or anything like that. It's the same building,
At least it's still there.
but
I've
yes,
seen a
it's
lot
still
of
there.
things go through a progression. All of a sudden, they're wiped
Yeah.
off. You know, kind of like what's this movie called, The Time Machine? How
Mhm.
stuff just kind of just falls apart around them.
Yeah. Yes.
But only slower.
I like that movie, by the way. I don't. The ending,
I think it's
it
awesome.
starts getting all convoluted, but in the beginning it was good.
Yeah. I like that
think
movie
it's awesome.
too.
Which one though? The original or the 2000 whatever one? With
That one, the 2000 whatever.
Yeah, the one with the guy with the superpowers, because that's how I saw that. I don't know. Maybe I misunderstood it, but
Yeah, I just threw that in there.
Were
It's
there
not
zombies
something
in
to-
it?
Hey, I'm
Zombies?
talking about I was talking about the 1960s movie.
yeah. See, I was either one though. Either one. Yeah, the 1960s. You did see. Yeah.
Yep. With Rod Taylor and
Yeah,
Alan
that's what it
Young.
is. Yeah, Rod Taylor.
Mhm.
That's the one I know.
Yeah, that's the one I know as
But the
well.
other one is very good too, by the way, Eloy.
Yeah, well, no, don't. I mean, whoa.
We lost Mark.
Time
guess Time
Machine. He's
Machine's-
gone.
Okay, so he pressed the wrong button.
Not that button, Mark.
Okay, so now we know. I thought Time Machine conversations were like you put
No,
that in
I-
the note.
No,
I
went to
I
the
just
wrong-
gave some orders. I just gave some orders back there to engage and go find them. But
Is
find a
that
plan to go around.
is that the original Enterprise, the one with that one guy Bacon, what's his name? You know, the guy from Time Leap or Quantum Leap.
No. Yeah. Scott Bakula.
Bakula.
No. Yeah. No. This is I'm trying to remember the Titan. I believe this is the Titan.
Let me pick a one bone here with you, just and publicly to settle this score once and for all, because this is where truth gets put on the table and chopped up like tidbits at a pork festival. The other day I posted a very nerdy to many people because I got some reactions. Picture of myself where I superimposed it's my whole body, but I was wearing a blue shirt. And as I looked at it, and I had taken the thing earlier, and I was going to post it as normal, and I said, man, I look stupid. So I put it to the side.
And what did I say? And what did I say?
No. Let me say. But then I looked at it again, and I said, man, I look. Actually, the truth is, I was saying, man, I look fat. So I looked at it and said, but that blue shirt could be something. So I did a Photoshop and I posted it. And it's kind of nerdy, but a lot of people liked it. And then I said Stardate, blah, 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 which I got from the internet as the original series Stardate, and you went and publicly shamed me with the dating. You tell me what?
I'm an educator. That's what I do.
And he sent me to a site that literally there's calculations and this and like it's in depth and stuff. Yeah,
It's crazy, Eloy. It's
it's
crazy.
insane,
It's crazy.
dude. It really
That's
is.
why I love it so much. I mean, really and truly, it's like, you guys were talking about reality. The reality in my brain is so warped because of the things that I see, things that I do. Everybody's got different experiences, but I think about truth, and I think I don't want to say it, okay, but sometimes I wonder. So what is real? And then I go back, to the Moody Blues. What are the lyrics?
In a
Gray
rock
is
and roll band.
at the end.
Nights in white satin.
Yes, and at the end it says, at the end it says something like
And I love
gray is
you.
white and something something, but you decide which is right
And which is an illusion.
and that
Cold-hearted.
and that's why I feel that everybody is living in their own illusion or their own reality, and it's different. It's totally different in my brain as it is in Mark's. I mean,
And you prove that by correcting Eloy Stardate.
and it is in yours too. But see, what does that say about you, or what does that say about me?
I can tell you what it says about Greg. I can't get him to watch one damn freaking horror / zombie movie, and I can see his face contorting as we were saying. But go ahead.
Well, but like the zombie.
You might grow out of it too, there, Eloy.
I'm not that. I used
But I
to.
was 14 when I grew out of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think that's where about I was. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Invasion of the Body Snatchers 2. I don't know. I don't remember the names of.
But you see, you were about the same era that I was, Al.
But zombie movies don't enthrall me.
Yeah, it was kind of like, I mean, Night of the Living Dead, I have to say, was the first real zombie movie that I saw. Before that, there were zombies here and there, but they weren't the main feature. They were just kind of background monsters. The people that played zombies in movies were the ones that weren't good enough to get the Dracula or the Frankenstein lead roles.
Right.
So two things about movies and a little bit about what Al was saying in terms of like we're all in our own sort of worlds and whatnot. So
And we are.
So well, I agree with that to a great degree, but it's not the only. Didn't you watch the first part of our show? We explained all this stuff
Today.
We're gonna have to give you a test.
I came in late. Remember?
Oh, okay. See, so here's the thing. Two things. One, isn't it interesting? And I don't know if it's true for you guys, but I've heard you guys say it many times. I, like you, I will have. There's a movie or two or a bunch of them that it doesn't matter how many times I've seen it. I will revisit that movie because it brings some sort. But here's the thing: why do we revisit movies we already know the story? Why? I think I know why. It brings us some sort of pleasure or whatnot. But
Yeah.
what do you guys?
It takes me back in time to when I first saw it. It lets me find things that I didn't find before. Those are my thoughts.
Mine is I just like it. It's the same reason I'll listen to the same album again or read the same book again. I just enjoy it. I like it.
And ditto what I said about what Mark said.
It refreshes your memories of that movie, and like if it takes so long for you to revisit it, like 10 or 20 or 40 years, and I just saw on our television they have I subscribe to one of these movie packages things, right? And it's I can't remember the name right now, but it's something like the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. Somebody. And I saw that when I was, I don't know if I was 6 or 5 or something like that. and it was a scary movie to me. And it was about a nightmare this kid had, and it had to do with playing piano.
That was pretty
And
darn close to 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. Sorry to interrupt you.
yep, that's
Pretty good.
So anyway, and
Wow.
it was I saw that when I was a kid, and it was a scary movie to me. Now it just kind of silly
Yeah.
and funny, but it was. So why do you go back? I don't know, just because it give you a good feeling when you watched it, or give you it impressed upon you when you watched
I,
it.
I agree
Like
with
I'll watch things like In the Heat of the Night, and I've watched it a couple of times in the last year, just because there was some really good, I figure, acting. And acting to me is not somebody doing some Shakespeare and spitting it all out, reams of lines, but making you believe that the guy he is playing, girl, he is playing woman, whatever, is actually that.
You
Like
know,
Mhm.
Rod Steiger, was he a Southern sheriff? Yeah,
to,
of course he was.
to your point, but you just said it that way, and I'm sitting here thinking, and I could be totally off base on this. Carroll O'Connor was such a good actor that he could play the part he did in The Heat of the Night and the same or differently as he did on
Archie.
Archie, yeah.
Carroll O'Connor, I don't think was in the Heat of the Night, was he?
He was.
There was, and I think it was episodes, right?
It was the show,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
he was in the movie too.
Okay. No, the movie was Rod
You're
Steiger.
referring to the movie, but
I
to
know,
your
yeah.
point, but to your point, an actor can be
Yeah, okay.
good. Yeah.
Huh. So he didn't play in the movie.
No,
Okay.
because I think when they come up with the TV series, what's his name? Steiger was dead, or not acting anymore. I don't know.
Isn't the same thing with MASH? Wasn't MASH that way? The original cast with maybe the
A
exception of
good
Cleveland?
a good percentage of
Yeah,
the original
like that.
cast
Yeah.
What was
was
it?
in.
Were they?
Well,
Preacher, Radar.
yeah, and
Jamie Farr?
some of the minor characters were.
Yeah, Jamie
Yes.
Farr. Yeah, I think.
I'm probably wrong, and I don't know, but it just seemed to me like the movie was, and then I don't know.
I'll throw something at you guys because you guys would have been aware of it. Unlike myself, growing up with the kids around the block.
Was that the New
So-
Kids on the Block?
We were, well, now we're the old kids on the block, but Vietnam to us was the equivalent of 9/11 to kids that are 20 years old today. Even though I was born in the last throes, did it end in 70?
70, was it 76 or 77? I'm trying to remember. It was 76 or 77 that it actually ended. Yeah.
I don't remember, to be honest, but
To
we
us,
can find out.
But that was ancient history to you, wasn't it?
well, that's what I'm
pretty
going to
much.
say. So, but here's the thing: growing up and running around Sweetwater, as we did.
75, guys.
75.
Okay, so it was the year I was born.
April 30th, 1975. Having rebuilt their forces and updated their logistics systems, North Vietnamese forces triggered a major offensive in the Central Islands in March. NVA tanks rolled through the gate of the presidential palace of Saigon, effectively ending the war April 30th, 1975. And you were there.
I was
No.
a month,
I was
almost a
14.
month. I was almost, no, yeah, a month. I was almost a month old.
Wow. I remember where I was.
Well, let me say this little sort of side track within that before you tell us about whatever the thoughts are.
Oh, come back,
Walk-
please.
Walking around Sweetwater playing with my friends, I would talk to my friends, and they'd say, and like, oh, well, why is, I'd say, oh, well, your dad went there. Well, we can't go in the room now because they'd have posters of rock and roll, and because he likes to be alone. He was in Vietnam. We gotta leave him alone. And so Vietnam was something for us growing up. Things that we heard of, some serious stuff happened, but to us, you know, we were kids.
Mhm.
So we didn't know anything. So it was a weird, just last thing I'll say, it was a weird, when you consider people that grew up in the 2000s, born in 2000, that didn't experience what 9/11 was, as an example. And there's many examples that you can use. It was something of the time before. So
Yeah.
when it came time for me to watch MASH, or I'd see it on the TV, it was like, I don't want to see this. Even though they were joking, I couldn't understand as a kid, why are they joking about something as serious as war? See, that's the simplicity of a young mind. I didn't want those two items crossing at that time. Anyways,
Well, I can say that growing up during the Vietnam era, I mean, some of my earliest memories of quote unquote the media and the news and things like that, they were talking about Vietnam. And that lasted up till you said 1975. I was 14 years old. So just about my entire, I mean, from the day I was born, that was part of the culture.
experience.
It was part of being aware, you know.
Mhm.
MASH was set in the Korean War, which
Oh,
was
that's
in the
right.
50s before my time. But because I had heard Vietnam for the first half of my life by the time that came out, well, all my life by the time that came out, it was easy to associate it with Vietnam, but we were so desensitized
Mm-hmm.
because we constantly heard it.
That's right.
So it removed a lot of that seriousness that you're talking about. A lot of that was removed because it was like information overload on the topic. It was not that way to the people who were there. I mean, some of those people suffered, but it was because it was, you were constantly hit with it and hit with it and hit with it every day. The seriousness just kind of went away in much the same way. Now let's think about this. If you were to try to pitch a sitcom, a situation comedy set in a Nazi POW camp during World War II, you think any do you think any network would touch it?
Well, today, no, but there was
Right.
Hogan's Heroes.
But in the
Yes.
60s,
Yes.
No
the
whistling,
World War
Al. No
in the
whistling.
Sorry.
but in the 60s, the World War II generation was basically running everything. They had been overloaded with it as well. They were desensitized to it. And yeah, this could be a winner. Let's go ahead and do it.
Well, they made the Nazis look dumb and silly and
Yeah.
inept. So
Yeah.
there was a whole
Sure.
thing. But
I love that show, by the way.
you're right.
The war thing for me, because I'm probably the oldest in the room. When I was growing up, there was your Vietnam was just starting. When I was whatever you want to come or say became aware of as a current thing because it was in the newspapers. But
Yeah.
I had watched how many World War II shows and movies
Same here.
over the years because like I didn't go to the theater to see them when they come out in like 1940 whatever, but
Yeah.
they were on television, right? So
Mhm.
I'd seen them, and then along come the Bay of Pigs, and
I
that
was
was
there.
yeah, but it was in the news,
Third pig from
and
the left.
but so you go along, okay, World War I, World War II. 20 some years between, you're looking at 1963, 4, 5, 20 some years later, when is World War III coming? I'm thinking, and I'm 7 or 8 or something like that, and I'm thinking, okay, it's inevitable, it's coming, um th- I think there was a headline to that effect in the local newspaper about World War III and Vietnam, saying, is this going to
Mhm.
be World War III or something like that? And
Yeah.
then thinking, okay, well, what does that mean to me and my family, this kind of stuff, that kind of stuff, living out, in the
Yeah.
middle of nowhere in Canada, but But so yeah,
Slurpee Emporium with like
I was outside the
So-
Slurpeeville. I was about 100 miles west at that
weeds,
point in time.
weeds growing
Damn.
off the sides.
Slurpees hadn't been invented.
Can I extrapolate?
7-Eleven hadn't been invented.
Can I extrapolate from what you said and safely say that there's going to be a world war right around the corner? I mean, not like the signs point to it or anything right now, but I mean, how many years? You said 27. How many years has it been? So we're overdue.
Well,
Is that
you
being
know.
too harsh to think that?
well, eventually it'll happen. But what can I say?
like
Jim
I-
Dockeral says when I was young, I used to watch Rat Patrol and Combat on TV on Saturday mornings after
Exactly.
cartoons. Yeah, you had let's see, Rat Patrol, Combat,
espionage.
McHale's Navy.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
that-
the Black Sheep Squadron later on in the 70s.
with Connor, right? William Connor or William O'Connor or something like that.
Comrade.
Not
William
William
Conrad, yeah.
Bill
Conway?
Yeah.
Uh,
Bill Conrad or William Conrad.
not on Black Sheep Squadron.
No,
I can't remember him.
Conrad wasn't he?
Robert Conrad on the Black Sheep
Yeah.
Squadron.
Yes, there you go. There
And
you
so
go.
I said comrade, and everybody like poo-pooed it. And I'm the youngest guy here. Can you get some
You were
credit?
right, but it wasn't William. I was trying to remember his first name.
Well, the only reason I even ended up there is because I did used to watch it on reruns, but because Al gave the clue with the something com something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take half credit.
All
But yeah, Greg is 100% right. The number of World War II movies,
Yeah.
that were, and still one of my all-time favorites is still 12 O'Clock High. But I mean, I can't name all of the World War II movies. Another one is
I got
In
the
Harm's Way.
I got
Bridge
the
over
Great
River
Escape playing
Kwai.
in the background right now.
Do what now?
I got the Great Escape playing in the background right now.
Yeah, The Great Escape. I mean, Bridge Over the River Kwai, like you mentioned, The Longest Day, A
Guns of
Bridge Too
Navarone.
Far, The Guns of Navarone, The Dirty Dozen. I mean, all of those were set in World War II, whether it actually happened or not.
Listen, here's the thing too. We have various generations here. It's all a continuum, so don't think that and we've talked about that before. But there is a thing about there's movies when each and every one of us came out that was new to each and every one of us respectively. But what's interesting is culturally through whatever 10, 15, 20 years spans or whatever that thing might be between all of us, whatever that might be, due to the 20th century occurrence of us stuck with 3 channels and people play and the channels playing movies every Sunday and whatnot. We were all, I mean, you're lucky if you had cable and then, you go to a friend's house or whatnot. But we all saw roughly variations or the same darn thing. That,
For the most part, yeah.
for the most part, I would say that that's true, dude.
That is so true because now I can't remember if it was a Pink Floyd lyric. There's what 500 channels of beep on the TV to watch or anyway.
Okay. I thought you were talking about
57
another
channels and nothing on.
57 channels and nothing on. Yeah,
No,
like
this is
Floyd.
hundreds of channels.
Yeah.
and
Well,
no-
you said, Eloy, you said if you were lucky, you had cable. There was no cable when I was growing up. There was
I couldn't afford it. To be honest with you,
cable.
I couldn't see
There was
cable.
no cable. I mean, there was cable came out to the Bay Area of California in about 1975. So
but I
before
was
that,
I
that was antenna, and that was it.
Right.
when I was born, there was already cable. It's just that we never had it until sometime in the 80s. My father kept it for a little while, and he says this stuff is too expensive. Screw this.
Yeah, it's expensive.
It was like this brick with buttons that went clink 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 clink, and it had faux wood on the front of it.
Yeah.
Ours was a big box like that had the clunk mechanical buttons on it, and then you had a switch on the back of the TV that they screwed to the back of the TV up on top. You would put it on channel 3 and flip that switch, then the box would work.
Yeah.
Then you change the channels with that, but then you'd
It's
flip the
amazing.
switch again, and you could tune in the regular channels if you wanted to.
Yes.
Although why you would want to, I'll never know.
Okay,
Right.
so let me throw you guys. It's not really a curveball, but I'm gonna say that because what else? I have got nothing else to say about it.
Is it a foul?
It's a curveball
Okay.
for the purposes of this thing. Earlier, someone was actually it was Mark. No, it was somebody said World War III or I don't know what. And it's around the corner. Well, everybody was talking about it. Well, anyways, I ran into a video. There's plenty of them online. Well, let's read what before
Jim
I
Docker will talk about standing beside the TV,
Yes.
holding the rabbit
Definitely.
ears, so that
Definitely.
everyone could watch TV.
Yes.
Yeah,
And who didn't put tinfoil on the rabbit ears?
tinfoil
Yes.
on the
I
rabbit.
did that too.
We didn't have the rabbit ears on the TV. We had the big antenna on the pole.
And sometimes you have to tell them, go outside and turn it.
Exactly. And my mom and dad had this fight probably 13 times a year. Mom would be hanging out the window, dad would be out there, and the minute he touched the pole, she'd go, right there, that's
Right
better.
there. Yeah,
He's
right
like,
there.
I'm not standing out here. Let me turn it. But the minute he touched that post, right there, that's
Yeah.
perfect.
That there's funny. I don't care who you are. That there's funny.
Yeah, but you have to. But in order for you to even laugh at that, you have to have. So I can
It
I
sounds
can
very
relate to
Green
that.
Acre-ish to me.
Anybody past the time of antennas like that, like in today's world, wouldn't have that reference. They'd say, "Oh, that's weird." Like, okay, see, I had something else to say, but there's videos where they put like old school games, computer games, and they give it to the kids, and you should hear their reactions, dude.
Oh yeah.
They're looking at it like it's dinosaur land.
Well,
And-
in computer terms, it is. But yeah,
Yes, it
you're
is.
right.
So
Hey,
no, but
I even look at like a Commodore 64 game. I love Commodore 64s, don't get me wrong. And it's like, I can't really do too much more of this. It's all blocky and pixelated, and
It's 8-bit.
but
Try
I
it.
slayed the
20.
dragon. But I slayed the dragon.
yeah, I mean, well, so going back to the World War III thing, so here's the thing.
Duke Nukem, dude.
Well, going back to this, just to say, if all that we built up now, and there was such a calamity, and there was like total wipeout, the things that we have left behind, whatever that might be, are the things that people in the future would come across and say, well, wait, this civilization, like just imagine whatever random item they'd find, they'd have to build the past civilization around. Just an Atari cartridge. They don't even know what Atari is, and like it's sitting there, and they're trying to figure out, was this yellow creature that's round with a big mouth, was that some sort of like ancient god for these people? And it's Pac-Man.
Eloy? No, it would be E.T. the Activision game that they'd be digging out of the landfill.
That's true. That's
Okay.
a very that's
All right.
a good,
Yeah.
you know what? You just killed it with that one because that's
Mhm.
true. There's a whole thing about that. But okay, so the other day I watched a video where they're talking about ancient Egypt and this and that, and they have no they have no idea. And we've talked about it, but here's the thing: everybody or a lot of people say there had to have been some sort of like interstellar bombardment of something that destroyed everything and the big pillars and the this and that, and we just don't know the details. We have ideas, but they have saw marks, or what they call saw marks, into the granites and cuts and the polishing and just a whole assortment of things that becomes problematic.
And it's perfect, right?
It's perfect. We don't know what.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, in our equivalency of what we have, whatever's left, what the heck would those people in the future say? I mean,
Those
what if they found a big like Slurpee sign somewhere up in what used to be Canada, and it's sitting there all covered with, they look at it and they have to polish it, and then it ends up in a museum.
you know what comes to mind? Planet of the Apes, where they're on the beach and the Statue of Liberty is sticking out of the sand.
Yeah.
That's kind of, and then Return to the Planet of the Apes, I think, or Under the Planet of the Apes, where they went into the subway and stuff, and that's what was left down in there.
Yeah.
But
Well,
anyway,
just stuff like, well, exactly that. So like, let's say they find Mark's lathe,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's covered with layers of. Well, look, counting the layers.
Yes.
This was during the eucalyptus era, and whatever their number rating systems is, and then they'll pull it out, and then they'll notice that, they'll start to investigate why the metal is such, and what the heck is this instrument stuff, and they'll spend like a millennia studying Mark's lathe and stuff.
Yes.
Well,
Just
I think all this stuff about, like, you're talking about archaeology, is it?
Mhm.
And looking up and figuring this, oh, look what they did here, look what they did then, but
Yeah.
they still don't. And like I was talking about when I was growing up and World War III coming along, they don't know the mindset of the people that lived that, and what they were thinking about,
Right.
and I don't know how they could ever figure that out, because it's, yes, some of it was written down and some of it was, they can decipher, but for just the general purpose population, it's going to be,
No,
it
no,
would put
correct.
another depth into it completely. Because when
No,
I was
there-
growing up, and why was World War III the thing on my mind is, I was living with World War One vets, World War II vets that I knew personally, and they, you just kind of like, you didn't talk about it that much with them, but you knew who they were, and I had uncles and grandfathers and that kind of stuff, and then other people, and so
Well-
it in the time is what I'm saying is, what were the people's mindset when they were doing this and playing Atari games and all that.
Well,
But
not
let me-
only that, but we also were in the middle of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, and we were under the threat of mutually assured destruction. And that was thrown on us every day as well. I
Yep.
mean, I don't know if you did the duck and cover thing in school, had the
A
nuclear
bit of it, yeah.
drills
Not,
and
Yes,
what have you.
and Missile Command sold thousands of copies of the game.
Oh,
I mean,
millions of copies.
yes, millions.
And
that was a
so
great game.
World War III was always just that threat that's right around the corner. And so I don't know. I mean, maybe that whole thing was just a thinly veiled way of dealing with that truth.
Yeah,
you
because
know?
if it lands on you, no amount of covering
Mhm.
and ducking is going to patch that
Oh, sure.
Humpty Dumpty back
You
again.
know, well, it was easier to say duck and cover than put your head between your legs and kiss your ass goodbye.
Right.
You know,
I
and you don't
wanna-
want to tell that to a room full of 5-year-olds. Believe
And
me.
yes, in the hall, they would take us out to the hall and we'd sit there. And, yes, definitely.
Roll into a ball and all that.
I
other
want to
good stuff.
return to the what Greg was saying about what would they know and how much you could, and I would have to say, yeah. So it's totally, so just as an example to I guess enforce that idea, there's a civilization called Tartessians or Tartesians, and in the south part of Iberia, they knew for a long time certain things, like they did trade with Phoenician people because they find the things, what kind of things they traded. They find pottery, but and they also find items.
Mhm.
But for a long time, up until this month, just as an example of what you're saying, like what do we know? For like since the beginning of the 20th century, and maybe beyond, they thought that the civilization made no self-imagery of themselves. It was all just sort of like those rock gods or just functional stuff. They found they found a whole area, and they found these ceremonial or whatnot masks with actual facial features and the whole thing. And they've had to now recorrect just this month their whole understanding of, at least in that respect, of what they thought was a given, which is a mind blower. So yeah, so unless you're there, there's a lot that you just don't. I mean, for goodness sakes.
If you want to read a book that kind of is a spoof on this subject, There's a book by an author named David Macaulay, and it's called Motel of the Mysteries. And it was written in 1979. But he was inspired to write this book based on the hype surrounding the artifacts from Tutankhamun's tomb coming to the U.S. and basically going on tour in various museums. And people just went King Tut and Egypt crazy.
Mhm.
Now that was in the 70s, about 76,
Steve Martin
77.
included.
Something. Steve Martin did the King
Mhm.
Tut song. I mean, it was on everybody's brain.
Mhm.
Yeah. That special where they filmed it and stuff.
Mhm.
Remember that where they uncovered that thing? That
Yep.
was freaking awesome. That they used to play that on Sundays.
Well, that inspired him to write this book. And it's set way, way, way in the future. There is no longer a United States.
So in the year 4022, an amateur archaeologist makes an important discovery
Right.
in the long buried country of the USA. Motel of the Mysteries?
He finds a motel room. Then he sets about to explain what everything he finds in this motel room is. The bed is a sacrificial altar. And he finds toothbrushes. And he finds the toilet. The toilet is an altar where they can speak to the gods of the underworld.
I've
and
done
things
that.
like that.
That
And
That's a few drinks, yeah.
they wore a headband with the sacred chants sanitized for your protection. And the toothbrush, they have a drawing of it's heavy with illustrations, and they have a drawing of what they think these people look like. And here's this guy standing there with the headband that says sanitized for your protection, that wrap the toilet seat, and he's got toothbrushes hanging from his ears like earrings.
Yeah.
And I mean, just a whole bunch of goofy things.
He didn't chew on the mints that they leave in the urinals, did he?
I don't know. I don't think so. But we'll find out. Have you ever been in a motel room that had a urinal? I haven't.
Oh, I don't want to say what.
I've been in a motel room that had a telephone in the bathroom.
Well, okay.
Did you ever go into a motel room and find a horse in the kitchen sitting there and turned around and looked at you and said, "You're in the wrong room"? And a guy pops his head out and he says, "Get out of here."
Oh my God. That sounds like something from Two Broke Girls.
But it's a funny book. It's written as a satire in that, and it kind of started me on this path of how much we know through all these archaeological digs. Yeah. How much is our projection on this culture, and how much is actual knowledge?
I will say,
1979 book, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I will say though that yes, that's the initial idea and stuff, but in reality, these people they're not going to know what they don't know, but they can. So for instance, they're very tedious with what they're doing from A to B. Some context is just not possible. But like if there's a water spout coming from, I don't know, some sort of aquifer or some sort of, aqueduct type deal, or, just there's a bunch of things that can easily, because they've been in use for thousands of years, actually. Like they're still running systems like in Europe. So there's certain things, and like money coins, and then there's the documents that people wrote. But even so they have writings, and a lot of writings for certain societies were only what you call like for trade and whatnot. So you don't have, Mindy the other day went to the local meat market and that sounds like the beginning of a really bad film. But in any event,
did you see where they dug up some 1,000-year-old or 1,500-year-old money in the
northern area?
It was Viking currency and something else. Just
it was Roman. The one I'm thinking about was found somewhere in the northern seas, up where the Vikings are, unimaginable to people, and they found Roman coins. But their suggestion, and then they were saying, well, would Roman ships have gone up that? Well, they went as far as England, what is the British Isles. There's no reason why they wouldn't have gone further, but long story short, there was trade, so that goes both ways.
Exactly. Just because they found Roman artifacts there doesn't
could-
mean Romans ever made it there. They could have been traded with another
Or could have been
civilization that
plundered.
went there.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. It could have been plunder. It could have been traded. It could have been anything.
Yeah, there's a bunch
You
of
know.
scenarios that could have occurred, and there was captives. There must have been.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. So Jim Dockrell has a good one here. Why are psalms sung so mournfully? They could have been rocking out with them when they were written. I mean, I guess it's possible. The
And
only thing
the irony is that psalms were sung to praise, right? I mean, to
Yeah.
Yeah, it the only thing they have is what's been passed down from the the new priests and new monks go learn it from the old guys. Well, and that's been passed down through the centuries. But
Yeah.
he's exactly right. Who's to say somebody didn't say, we need to slow this down.
There's an
We need to make
argument.
this more somber.
There's arguments also within arguments, so it's all like those Russian cascading dolls, so they talk about the Hebrews and stuff, and there's not just one type of Jewish group. Like the in the United States, the one that we're familiar with mostly is the Ashkenazi European Jewish people that when they exited the Holy Land, they went up through, I mean, they know now actually through genetics, because as they went, they left their genetics. So, they went through Italy, and so in through Italy and up, and they ended up in Europe and all that. But as time went on through that journey, it wasn't like, oh, I'm leaving on Friday and I'll be, it was a journey through the ages.
Yeah,
So-
that took centuries in some cases.
So as they left, right, and some people stayed behind, then later went, and it's like a slow crawl with groups and what. Well, as the time went by, certain practices or certain little ways of doing things differed from other groups of Jewish people that left. So that today there's a few branches that, although they have most of it in similarity, coming down the pipes from back when, and that can be shown because there's groups that broke off.
Yeah.
Well, and yet they carry the same traditions. Well, what they have found is that their food customs are shifted. Their certain ways of writing or practicing have shifted. So there is that. If things shift through time, so it's
Sure. Well, a lot of things are environmental. A lot of things are situational. I mean, and as you move, certain things are not, available anymore. And these things are not available now that weren't available back then. And so things things change.
right.
Yeah,
So
I think the word that's mostly used is evolutionary. One thing leads to another, like the bills, on certain birds in certain areas,
Sure.
the islands of the Galapagos, here and over there, they're different, but same bird. And then over time they change
as they broke
because
into
of need.
different,
Yeah. But a lot of things are also situational and environmental. For instance, there's a flower that you plant the seed anywhere else in the world, it's white, but you plant it on this one ridge in Hawaii. The soil conditions are just right. The flower blooms blue.
Oh wow.
So it's just, there are weird things like that. It's the same species. It's just an environmental thing that causes
Right.
a change.
That's one of the, I don't know, the only environmental flower thing that I've ever heard, or where it grows.
And I
in the
don't remember
dirt.
which one it is. I don't remember
Wow,
which
that is amazing.
flower it is.
Yeah.
But everywhere else in the world it's a white flower. But on this one ridge line, on this one mountain range, I believe it's on Kauai, it blooms blue, a light pale blue.
I wonder if it has to do with the soil, and this is environmental too. The soil, the weather, the magnetic field of the earth. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know about magnetic fields,
Well,
but
why
the theory
not?
the theory when I heard about this was it was something to do with the soil,
Sure, I'm sure it's the soil.
iron oxide and this, that, the other. I don't know.
Well, yeah, iron will turn things red or rusty, and what is it? Copper may turn things blue or bluey green or whatever, just by
And so were silver. Silver sort of
silver
blue
will
or
do it.
purple.
Yeah.
Unless it's been explained to a fairly reasonable degree, it's all sort of slightly. We have our best guesses We don't
Mhm.
really, unless we know,
Yeah.
or there's someone out there that has it tested. We don't know.
Hey, what does
What?
this say? I don't know.
Well, I mean, but I guess my whole point of bringing up that Motel of the Mysteries is that we project a lot. He was pointing out in a satirical way that we project a lot on these old cultures.
Hmm.
We don't know what they were thinking when they were doing X, Y, or Z. We tend to think that everything there, I mean, if you find a place in ancient Egypt or ancient Greece where three rocks are stacked up in a certain way, there has to be some sort of a spiritual component to it. How do we know that somebody didn't do it just because they liked the way it looked?
Right, right.
We
It's
tend to want to throw aesthetics out the window and have to put a spiritual attachment to everything we find when it comes to an ancient society.
Yeah, the
it
point is true. I'll just say this one thing real quick here. The point, I get the point, but that's for the layman in a general sense that is unaware of all the available data that there is. For people that do these things for a living and that are immersed in that world, they take very fewer guesses and chances with assumptions. But even in that layer of or level of
Mhm.
involvement, people come to impasses where they don't agree with certain assessments, and so that's how come books start getting written about this variation and that variation. But
Right.
the average populace at large, if you think of Rome, you may have a few key items that pop into your head, and that's your idea of Rome, and the rest be damned because you don't go further than that in your mind because you don't want
Sure.
to or whatever. But for these people, there is so for the average person, there's more to know, so they could clear the decks of certain mysteries if they were so darn
Yeah, but
involved in it.
if you would have to be interested in it to do that research. But
Mhm.
if you watch the National Geographic special on a Sunday just because that's all that's on that's worth a damn,
That's all
you're
you got.
hearing about all you're getting is these spiritual connections. And you got it from National Geographic. Why would they lie? It's got to be true, you know. So,
It's
Yeah,
somebody
there's
else's reality.
mhm. So you were going to say, Greg?
you're talking about stacking the three stones, and
Mhm.
well, it means this or means that or could
Mhm.
mean, and people make up their mind. If if you take like we have the Inuit up north, and they would carve soapstone as
Mhm.
as an art form. And
Mhm.
some might have a bit of a spiritual thing, as some of their, many
Mhm.
things. It depends on that. But then I go into the a show, and I forget what the show was, but it was like one of these that they have at the convention center, and you're in line to meet Red Green.
Mhm.
My son wanted to get he signed up duct tape
Keep your
for him,
stick on
right?
the ice.
Anyway, watching, but going by, and here's some guys. They got soapstone and they got die grinders,
Yeah.
and they're grinding out these stones. Well, okay, now
Right,
somebody comes
right.
along and things change, like
Sure.
and then just like say totem poles on the west coast,
Mhm.
they were carved with axes and made out of this, that, or the other. Now you got everybody and their uncles using chainsaws to make
Chainsaws. Yeah.
Mhm.
whatever. So yeah, things do change, and they're not always what they once were, and the,
Exactly.
and the meaning might be lost. And because totem
Exactly.
poles were and there was somebody explaining it on a show there, all the different clans that they
Mhm.
represented and all this kind of stuff, and that but then the guy with a chainsaw and a big stick, what
He's doing it because it looks good.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
yeah,
Linda's uncle Jack carved totem poles and had them up on his property down in Southern California.
Mhm.
He never attached any spiritual meaning that he was willing to tell me about
he,
to him. He just
he
carved them because it was fun.
yeah, and it looked good to him,
It
or
looked good.
yeah,
Exactly.
But I
and
bet somebody would buy one of those totem poles and actually put some type of
that
Oh,
meaning.
and
there you go, like
yes.
you said, like what do these
Yeah.
piled rocks
Or
mean?
or he could make up a spiritual meaning to them just to
Hmm.
make
Sure.
it more
It's
interesting to the
like I
potential
said, these
buyer.
Inuit, they have these things called an Inukshuk, and
Mhm.
it's a pile of rocks, but it kind of looks like a man. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
there's two piles of rocks going up to a body, and then one on top, like like a head.
Mhm.
And but it means, it points or Sometimes it means it points the way or the
Mhm.
direction. So it's like a road sign saying, well,
Mhm.
there's no roads up where they put these things, but you know, go
Well,
that way, go
where
that
we're
way.
going, we don't need roads.
Yeah.
Right. That
But
sounds
you
like
got
something
you
from
want a direction though, and this
Yeah,
one gives you
true.
direction.
You know, the as far as
Back
so
to the Future 3.
actually that isn't it two?
I thought it was number
Yeah.
one.
Well, was it?
Wait a second. Number two was the future, but it wasn't with no roads, right?
Well, wasn't it the railroad tracks? And wasn't the railroad tracks
It was
the
number two.
I
locomotive?
don't remember.
It was number
Wasn't
two, and it was repeated in number three because it was a bouncing back and forth.
okay, because
So it
I
was number
remember
two.
Doc specifically saying, "Where we're going, Marty, we don't need roads."
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought it was number one when he said, "Your kids have really raised up a stink in the future," and then
Okay,
the
all right.
car took off.
You're right.
But
It
I
was
this
thought
was
number one.
this was the railroad tracks.
Okay.
But Doc,
Well,
haven't
No,
we?
that's number three. The
well,
railroad track is number
it
three.
may be a repeated line in all of them. Who knows?
Maybe so.
Well, let me just say this about the religion and lost civilizations and that. You get the gist of my idea principally, which is that at one level we have a broad sort of like, sort of blurry
Sure.
thing. And so, the average public at large, unless they're invested in it, are going to say, well, it could be anything because in reality, without extra information, it could be anything.
Yeah, we just
But
don't
for-
know.
But for people that are invested in it, they have a little bit more insight than we would have. I mean, I think that that's reasonable
Sure.
to say. But as far as like religions and stuff, like, so we know that to a degree that the ancient Greeks believed in all these gods and this and that.
Yes.
So there's a lot of that. But what we don't know is, well, what we don't know is what we don't know. But we don't have the interactions necessarily of everybody to be able to
Right.
like to be able to collate a situation like how we know our society.
Uh-huh.
And even our society, if you we know a lot because we're living in it, but we don't know the goings on of everybody. But we have an idea that people usually sort of do the same things. They go to the market the same way, roughly. They may
Mhm.
pick the different vegetables than we would, or they might. But there's a general thing, so they can extract from what they do have from the past a
Right.
generalized idea of people's goings on to the degree that they can. So just putting that on balance with this notion of the opposite of like, well, we're completely oblivious and stuff. No, we
No,
have
we're not
makes sense.
completely oblivious, but I think that some of us, not all of us, some of us are too eager to place a spiritual component to everything. And I
what
I
like an
think
example.
I think that's a mistake. Well, the Pharaoh has a cup with two handles, and it's decorated with a crouching jackal. So that must be ceremonial. Maybe he just liked jackals. Maybe he had a tremble and he needed to hold that cup with two hands. Maybe it wasn't ceremonial at all. I
But
mean, you at one time probably had a cup from a fast food restaurant that had G.I. Joe on it. That don't mean you worship G.I. Joe. Just meant you liked it. You wanted that cup. You didn't want the one with strawberry shortcake on it.
yeah, and I guess there's also, you can say to a degree, since we're not studying the issue in depth, but you could say that a good guess is that if you don't want to go the route of Egyptian like religion or whatever spirituality, you could say it's a show of power.
Yeah, or
But
of just wealth.
Right. Or you could say, but in reality, you could say it's both because not everybody got a nice little abode to go into the afterlife. I mean,
Well,
they
sure.
do have, we have enough to know a general idea that they were
Sure.
involved in the concept of,
Now, if it was found someplace where ritual was performed, that's different. If it was in his tomb, that's different. If it was in his kitchen cupboard, probably not.
So with that notion, all of you guys, just like heading towards the airplane hangar as
taxi in.
we begin to settle down into the airport.
We don't need no roads, man.
No, but we do have
As
to
the-
land.
As the teleporter particles
Before
start
we
to reconfigure-
crash,
And by the way, I was having a Mandela moment. I was thinking it was the train that took off, and they said that, but it was in one. I'm sorry, Eloy. I know you're trying to transition.
How can you publicly say that to me? Anyways,
I wasn't
I
going to
didn't know.
but since you brought it up, I noticed the eyebrows are getting a little thinner, man.
That's age.
And he shaved.
That's
Um,
age.
so I, I'd be the worst nightmare of anybody in that scenario. Oh, hi. Anyways, let's put that to the side real quick here. See what you did there, Al? See, that's why we can't have any good
This is why
conversation.
we can't have nice things.
Yeah. Son of a gun.
Lost
As
your
we land
train
the
of thought.
As we land the hangar, and I had something right prior to
I
Al.
hope the hangar's not flying.
Yeah. Yeah, it just hangs there.
We're going mighty. We don't need roads.
Oh shoot! I can't escape this frickin' this.
Whoop, whoop. The train
escape
has
it.
left the train of thought has left the station.
Now, I was going somewhere productive, and it's gone. Does anybody remember?
It's a Mandela effect. It's a Mandela effect, I tell you.
It's a Mandela effect.
Yeah.
See, I can't look, and it's blurring out now. Everything's going wrong.
Nelson or Winnie, just depends on which side.
Mandela.
What were we talking about before this? There was something.
Back to the Future.
No, we were talking about ancient Egypt and the religious aspect of every single thing that they're.
Yeah,
you know, that
and
we
not
find.
everything may
Not everything
may
may be spiritual.
Spirituality being attached to physical items,
Mhm.
not necessarily by the maker, but by those that
Found it
From-
later.
From Greg's totem pole to your conversation now, it ruined everything.
There you go. Jim Dockrell says multiple handles on a drinking vessel makes it easier to pass around. There's some truth in that.
Mhm.
But I mean, you know, all it takes is one king who has a bad hand that's constantly trembling. I mean, Parkinson's wasn't just a 20th century thing. So it's possible that somebody needed two hands.
You guys
To
didn't get
drink.
my totem pole joke, the connection there, whatever.
actually
So
it was kindly kind of passed over.
oh, sorry.
Transitioned, you might say.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. See,
we're not deaf. We're ignoring you. No, I'm kidding.
well, I promise you that I did have something that would have tied everything up into a nice bow tie, but to heck with that, because it's unfortunate, but I might remember later, and I'll kick myself for it. But
that could be like November.
I'd like to say something. I think Eloy has just been trampled underfoot.
No, I don't
know,
think so at all.
I just thought it just seemed that way to me.
so tonight at the end, I'm the butt of the joke.
Mm. Mhm.
See, we're going into a 1980s style comedy where this used to be the norm. We can't and veiled at that.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to thank you all for coming out and hanging out with us here at the Trampled Underfoot podcast show. We go live every Tuesday at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific Coast time. And here at the Trampled Underfoot podcast show on YouTube, we also have a show or a page over on Facebook by the same name and a website called trampledunderfootpodcast.com. You can catch our past episodes by going over there and pressing, and they're entertaining. You could just download the episodes over on the button where it says, what does it say, Mark? The button?
Wayback Machine.
Wayback Machine. So you could check that out. And nothing. We're also sponsored by
Harneo Media, your web solution. If you're looking to create, improve, or even establish a web presence, there's no better way to do it than with a website. And Hardiel Media should be your first stop. It's 100% personalized service. They have competitive rates. And when you're dealing with Harniel Media, you are dealing with Steve, not some nameless, faceless person in a call center that you will never make contact with again. 100% of the time, you are going to be talking to Steve. And I don't know how he does it. The man is everywhere all at the same
He's
time.
ambidextrous.
He's ambidextrous is
Well,
right.
maybe-
I don't think the man sleeps. So that's
Maybe like-
that's Harneal Media, HARNEAL media.com, sponsor of TrampledUnderfootPodcast.com.
All right. Al, you are incorrigible.
I was thinking something like maybe he's like Super Chicken. He's everywhere. He's everywhere.
That was Chicken
Chicken Man.
Chicken Man, not Super Chicken Man.
Chicken
I'm
Man.
just-
Yes.
I'm just gonna. Well,
Roger Wilcox.
I'm gonna wish you guys, everyone out there, a good week and enjoy. Just I think you know it, and I don't need to say it, but I say it out of the kindness of process, and that's what humans do. But I wish you great things this week, and looking forward. Enjoy yourselves. Be safe, and I will leave this little nugget here, Al. I personally think, and we'll leave this for another time, that the new original Star Trek Enterprise series, in my opinion, was the best. I'll just leave that there for you.
It
Can't
is
say anything. We'll leave it
great
for later. You're going to have to hold on to that.
Okay.
And you'll tell me what's what if you disagree. Mark, any final things? And the rest of you, any final things in general?
Go have the week you deserve.
All right.
Yeah, it's almost half over. Hump day tomorrow.
Live long and prosper, everyone.
Don't mess with crazy glue.
See you.